is the Diary of a Lady Band Director podcast, brought to you by the Passion Is Network.
Good.
Krystal, mute yourself.
No, we good. Hello. Isn't that a lovely house, Lauren? Listen, that piano is already way above my pay grade. All right. Afternoon. Welcome to Diary of a Lady Band Director. And it's going to be Dos Chicas today. It is me, myself, Krystal Williams, and my good bestie, Lauren Cohen. And we are going to be talking about something I hope our viewers will be interested in. And of course, as always, with the Diary of a Lady Band Director, if you have something you would like to say, we can always drop the link in the chat and you can mic up and, of course, share your perspectives on anything in our podcast throughout the show. Yo, I see some people in the chat. And so today's topic, this came because, anyway, the topic came because I feel like the HBCU band world is being shaken up like crazy right now. Like there are so many positions that were open this year. Like I would say more than any year in my life. And just some questions have come up a lot, I see in like social media about hiring practices. So I thought today's show would be a good way to talk about, I call it the elephant in the room topic about minorities and how we're perceived when it comes to these positions and the availability. And when I talk about minorities, I'm not just talking about, the obvious, race. I am also talking about, of course, gender and anything that has intersectionality between all those things. So band director for hire, minorities not included. And I put that there because, of course, I'm a band director and Lauren is in the band world and she's in school. Oh, man, I'll post it. There were a lot of openings I saw somebody put in the chat.
Yeah.
I mean, let's see. Let's rattle them off. Morgan State was open, obviously, because I went there. That's now been filled by Jerome Reed. At North Carolina Central, that was open, but they have interim band director, Mr. Jovan Wilson, who was at Dale State for a while, but this last past season, he was the chief arranger for that program. Of course, I feel like I'm missing some. What else was open, Lauren?
Mute yourself, Krystal.
Oh, yeah, we're in the same room.
What else was open? Oh, okay, yeah. So Johnson C. Smith was open. Did they? I know who they hired, but did they announce it yet?
Someone said Allen was open.
Allen, Miss Milford, Jovan Milford got that position.
Okay.
Like I said, JCSU was open. I think they announced the person. I know who it is. Was it a formal announcement? I'm not sure. So I don't want to give that up. Clark Atlanta is open as well. Lincoln is open.
That's a lot. We said Johnson C. Smith, correct? And
yeah, Johnson C. Smith.
But elephant in the room, there's still how many Black women band directors at HBCUs right now?
From what I could tell you, just one.
So back to the elephant in the room. With all these openings, it's just I have a hard time believing that we don't have any other different. We don't have diversity enough that nobody's applied and nobody has the credentials and nobody has those things that someone would be looking for to run a program. And so that leads us to this first question. The process of selecting band directors, hiring practices on a collegiate level. I'm gonna say collegiate level, and then we can talk about like public school. But on the collegiate level, what's the ideal process? Because I saw a lot of kind of shady comments throughout Facebook about like some schools hiring, and it's just like it just seems like hiring practices are all over the place. And so let's think about this, like the panel thing. First, I always think it starts out with resumes. Like the opening goes out and then people submit their resume. And then that opening, they talk about the credentials that they're looking for, whether they're looking for someone with a master's degree or they're looking for someone with a doctorate or they're looking for all those things. And to be quite honest, sometimes I feel like even just from the credentials, sometimes there's a lot of misinformation, whether that's the school deliberately saying this is what we want, but then when it comes to who they hire, those credentials in the opening doesn't quite line up. When we talk about the position going open, sometimes it seems to be like there's some people of interest already for the university. So they kind of sometimes get a heads up before that even becomes the thing that's out in the open. So I don't know. It just seems kind of like one of those things that it's school-based. But I always imagine that it starts with an opening position. And it always starts with people putting things or putting their resume out there. So what are they really looking for if we put these credentials out there and we have some programs that still haven't made an announcement about a director? Yeah, so how many women directors currently? So East Carolina, I'm sorry, Elizabeth City, yes, and Virginia Union and Grambling. So that's 3, Lauren. It was 4, and at the peak of everything, I think we were up to 5. But we are still counting on one hand, people. So it's one of those things where, is that something to be like happy about? Like if we could still count on one hand, because when we look at our HBCU band programs, they're full of women. Yeah. They're full of women and they're full of music majors who are women. And they have band programs. And I know, there's several groups on Facebook full of women band directors. So, Lauren, what do you think the ideal process would be for having more diversity? Like, because of course we don't want to send a message like hire more women, whether they're qualified or not. But I don't think that's the issue anymore.
Okay, so the ideal process, it should start whenever the former band director has given their letter of resignation or say they don't want to sign another contract, or if the school lets them know, we're not going to renew your contract. The process should start then. The process of, there's a job opening, they announced the opening, but then being, I guess, organized as far as having everything should be done before the fiscal year begins. And the fiscal year begins in July. Here it is now, July 24th, and certain schools still haven't announced their band directors. And I don't know if there's certain positions in power that have to be available in order to make the decision, or, what the background is, but it should have been for a lot of these schools more organized, because the public in the band world, we've known for months who is going to have an opening. And I just feel like, firstly, it should begin with, of course, a national search. Get a national search along with giving the staff, whoever the assistant band director, a chance to apply. Sometimes, depending on the school, they have first dibs because they know the program, but it also depends on the school and how they feel about credentials. They should have a national search with transparency between the students and the alumni as well about the national search for new band director, and the participation of students, especially students with looking for a new band director. I know at Morgan, they allowed the current band students to tune in via Zoom during the interviews, which I thought it was a very cool idea to ask each candidate questions about how they're going to continue the band program and continue the legacy. I think it has a lot to do with transparency, because if you're transparent with everyone, then people will not be concerned. Also, timeliness. Like I said, it's July. I'm used to contracts starting on July 1st. Usually they do. However, I've heard August 1st for some places. However, I think a lot of timeliness and transparency needs to be had with the administration, between administration, students, and alumni, so it could be a seamless process.
That transparency part, I think, is really what's kind of missing in some people's gripes, or talking about like alum who are sometimes like, what's going on? We knew this director was leaving 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago. And now we're, band camp starts in like August.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to hiring, I understand the fiscal year because I'm a part of it. Like, I'm part of now, collegiate academia. Like, I'm a collegiate professor now. Like, I work on that level, and it's really, it's just kind of crazy to me that we have positions that are open, and I'm like, do we have candidates, or are the candidates that they got not ideal for the program? Because starting in August, like, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. I don't know. I couldn't imagine coming to a university and having to take over a program, and my onboarding is happening basically during the time that you will be reaching out and finalizing logistics for the year. Those logistics you would have already been working on back in the early spring, sometimes in the fall, late winter, a year out. So I just don't even understand. I can't even fathom having to deal with coming in and have to learn a whole system.
And just to chime in, they wouldn't do that with a football coach or any type of athletic coach, because they understand that they have to. Oh, Krystal, you got to mute. They have to understand that you have to build a relationship with the students. The students have to be confident in their new leader, and also work with the leader to come to a common goal. And it's the same thing with band. Marching, especially marching band, they're pretty much athletes, but it's different because they play as well. It's an art. And what's so similar about athletic teams and the band is everybody works for a common goal, whether if you're a marching band or concert band or whatever ensemble that you're in. So it's to help build that relationship. And also, I said timeliness because band camp is around the corner. A lot of high school band camps have started. Freshmen move in for college band camps have also started. So you have to hire a band director early enough so that they can plan. It's not just get in there and conduct the band. No, there's more. There's so much more to it. And when you talk about logistical stuff, like, uniforms, finances, you have to give the band director a chance to figure out what is it that they're coming into. And it's not fair to both the community. It's not just the students, but to the community and to the incoming band director, just to wait this long. I understand, it's July, people are on their vacations, this is a time that people take off. However, if you know that there is a job opening, just like with any other job, you need to assign people to be a part of that specific hiring process and to have deadlines in order to continue the proper business with whatever band program.
Listen, that is a word. It's somebody, and I agree with them, because you said it and it kind of really rings true. A lot of it seems like I don't know, we just don't see band as that important at the university level. Like, to us band heads, to us people who came through it, it made or break it. It really made some of us. Like, even if you're not a band director, even if you're just a Joe Smo, you marched in college and you've graduated, it means so much because we got so much out of it. Even if it wasn't quote unquote our major, we weren't music majors, and both me and Lauren are music majors, so it means that more because it shapes our careers. But yeah. Like you said, they wouldn't do that to the athletic. They wouldn't do it to a coach unless it was like emergency, like it was unplanned and they had to scramble and find someone. But absolutely not. Just some things from the comment section. Sean said that the job descriptions are a mess and poorly worded and not clear.
I wanted to respond to that because I would be absolutely scared as a candidate if the job description is like one line, and we're taught also, if they didn't have a salary there, if it was just very cryptic, and to Oscar's point, they don't even say what type of credentials. With some schools, they don't say what type of credentials you need. So somebody could have a master's in, I don't know, marine biology or something, applying to be a band director. And some schools are okay with that because it makes them look good. It makes it look good that, the band director, he has a master's. Okay. And what? If it's not in the field in which they're working, then what's the point? If we're talking about credentials, they have to be specific. I remember I worked for an agency in Durham County government where I worked in a dental clinic. The supervisor in dental clinic, he had a doctorate in psychology. It's like, wait a minute, this is dentistry, not psychology. So the weird mismatch of the credentials is what scares me. And what else do we have in the comments? Yeah, make a job description, make a band. Exactly. Or a candidate was in a band. I like, going back to the original question, I like the way FAMU did their process whenever Dr. White stepped down and they were looking for a new band director. It was very public. It was very open. Now, it was public for not so good reasons, but I like the fact that it was public because, with programs like the March of 100, there's a lot of stakeholders. That's something I want to get into. There's a lot of stakeholders in that band program. So you have to be transparent with your stakeholders. And, they had different candidates conduct the band and everything. I really do like that. And they ended up choosing the current band director, Dr. Shipman. So I do like that. When I was discussing, athletics versus band program, I think the difference is stakeholders. People don't have a lot of stake in these band programs, but with these athletic programs, there's a lot of stake going into it. Not with these big schools, but HBCUs too. They want to keep their stakeholders happy. I think we as band people, we need to be more, have a more interest in our own programs to become stakeholders so that it'll apply pressure to the administration, because the administration is pressured for certain things in their colleges, but not pressured with other things.
And was that stakeholder part is a whole different level, because if your band, let's just say that your band is not one of the premier ensembles of the or entities of the university, then the admin maybe aren't checking for it like they would like athletics, just just to put athletics out there. Still Kicking said we have to remember that the administration that's posting the job description has no clue what a band director does. True to a degree, but there's still the music department, and a lot of the hiring and that invitation is coming from the music department chair, whoever that is. And so I don't know if it's completely that they don't know what they're looking for sometimes. I don't know if it's completely that. Now we do know we have some department chairs that don't have a clue about the band, because sometimes the music department is separated from the band program, especially when we talk about marching band. Edwin Moore said, I gather there's a lack of knowledge of what it takes to run a band program by presidents, chancellors, and chairman department when apple anything outside of academics, they don't care. And I believe that to be true.
And athletics as well.
Yeah. I believe that to be true on the especially on the public school side. Oh my gosh. Like principals have no clue. Unless they were in band often, just speaking from personal experience, they have no idea that you can't just dump kids in there. And that would be a whole nother show if we talked about the egregious things that they talk, they do, but they don't understand. Still Kingin, you said, but that mixed match credentials makes why you know that person can be a professional. If you look at your high school, a few of their band directors weren't actually music majors. Yeah. That right there. I'm gonna let, we got Chuck sitting backstage, and I'm gonna let Chuck in because Chuck always brings good perspective to these type of conversations. So, hey Chuck.
Hey yo, what's going on, y'all?
Sup, fam?
Hey Chuck.
Can y'all hear me?
Yep, we good. I see you with the cap flipped back.
Oh yeah.
Like you about to go play basketball. I know you
Wait a minute. Look at that hashtag though.
Wait a minute. I can't even see this whole thing.
I'm tired. I've been waking up at 5 a.m. for the last 3. Well, no, really 4, because of precision camp before we started ours, and so we were there but early as well too. So, but there's so much in this topic. There's so much in this topic, and y'all know me, I can ramble. So reel me in if please do. Man, when I was jumping on, I was thinking about something, and when I was jumping on, Lauren was just talking about what I was thinking, and she was talking about the process that FAMU went when they were naming their new director of bands, and it made me think about another school currently. Let's put it out there. University of Michigan. It's open, but it's open for next year, and they've already started. And so,
look. My former band director, Jerome Reed, I was having a conversation with him about that. He mentioned that they have the position open for 2023. So yeah,
yes,
timeliness.
Yeah, it will start in the fall, and they've already started now. So, and I make the comparison to good customer service or like going to a good restaurant. We've all been to those restaurants that everything is to the T, But then we've been to some of the other ones that it's just like, do you want to be open? Do you really want my business? And that's how I look at it at our HBCUs, is the lack of attention to detail. But we all know at our HBCUs, our band programs are like considered, it's holy ground. It's the number one thing that the university tries to market. Being being an Aggie from A&T during the whole drumline movement, we never said we were associated to anything to that movie. But they put billboards up, the real A&T and this, that. They were like, wait a minute, we didn't say that. And they marketed it really big, you know, and I mean, it was crazy. I can still see the billboards now, you know, and all of that on there. We're like, wait a minute, you know. And so when it is a priority, they will prioritize it. And what we see is it not being, you know, prioritized. Again, y'all know, you know, and we ain't going to put names out there, but we know of folks that are in these situations currently waiting for, you know, either to be offered or to be interviewed or to just receive an opportunity. And y'all know that we've seen it. Universities will do this. They will either, if they really want to find somebody, they'll put it on all platforms, higher ed, LinkedIn, everywhere, right? Because they want to get the best candidates in, right? If they're going 3 to 5 or whatever, and let the chips fall where they may. Other schools will just put it on because legally they only have to put it up for a certain amount of time. And they put it on their university website, and then it will go away. And then it'll go away. You won't see it again, you know. And what I've noticed is that, you know, some universities or individuals that are over, you know, on these panels will do that because they already have the person in mind, you know.
And I'm glad you said it.
Yeah, they already have the person in mind, and it's not fair to the individuals that are, you know, going in thinking it's on a clean slate. You know, it's not fair to them. And I've been on both sides of the coin in terms of like being in the hiring process, you know, at the different schools that I've taught at, or sitting on the other side. You know, Mr. Devon Pickett is at Hope County. You know, he was teaching at the middle school before he came up to the high school. And, you know, they asked me, and that's who I recommended, but we still had to go through the process. We still had to go through the process of interviewing folks, and we made it, you know, as clean cut and dry. But I do feel that, like, in certain positions, having the blessing of, like, for an example, you know, with you know, Mr. Melvin M. Maz, you know, being there for so long, like, that individual should be a part of the process, you know, of that, because it's just out of respect. You know, it's just out of respect, and sometimes you don't see that.
See, and the word you hit the buzzword, Chuck, the good old boy system. That's actually a question. I'm gonna have to go out of order because when somebody bring up the buzzword, you can't avoid the question. Right. So we know, especially when the director's been there for a long time, it makes it a more highly coveted position.
Right.
Of course, the popularity of the band program matters that much more sometimes. But when it's somebody who's been sitting there in that place, you know that you don't have to build from nothing. And that is, you know, just even on a public school level, the only position I ever got where I didn't have to come in and literally start from scratch was my last position. Mm-hmm. And everyone was gunning for that position. Everybody I'm telling you, everybody was gunning for that position because they thought that, erroneously, they weren't going to have to do any work. Mm-hmm. That's that perception. Like, oh, I don't have to come in and do too much. But that good old boy system. So this is the question. Do you think the good old boy system is preventing HBCUs from having the best candidate possible? Unless we could throw that minorities not included into that topic. Are we missing out on talent still operating from this?
I believe we are, because there's still schools that are hiring older. I want younger band directors in those positions. There's so many good band directors who have the credentials, who have the experience, that just need a college program to prove you know, how much range they have. And I often see that there's the same cycle of band directors, especially the ones that are close to retirement, because they were already band directors is safer. I understand the experience, and maybe I'm on the line of ageism, but in my opinion, yeah, the good old boy system is we're missing out on talent because the talent is going elsewhere. They're going outside of the HBCU realm and into these bigger colleges, these PWI schools, FBS, FBS schools, to upstart their careers. And like I keep saying, diversity, equity, inclusion is in now. So HBCU grads have an in at these colleges so they can meet their quota. With the HBCUs not having that in mind, they're still hiring the same type of people. And I wish they would give, like my generation, there are so many good people in my generation that I was music majors with, not just at NCCU, but in other schools that could be good collegiate band directors that they don't give a chance to just because of their age. You know, it's kind of like, it reminds me of Congress. We have all these old people in the government that's still running the country because there are no term limits, you know, and with a lot of jobs, there need to be term limits. There needs to be a changing of the guard from the older generation to the newer generation. So with that being said, I wish HBCUs would become diverse in that way. When we think about diversity, we always think of race, but diversity can include gender. It can include different ages, different backgrounds. I wish we were diverse in that way. I think we're a little bit more closed-minded because the other schools, the PWIs, in the music realm, they're becoming more ahead of us in that realm. I will say that my college, NCCU, they do hire, you know, younger talent. They have hired younger talent, but I wish other schools would give other types of talent a chance so we can progress our band programs.
With the good old boy system, like there's some things that kind of get mixed into that. Good old boy system isn't so caring about age as much as who I know, who is my friend, who's my boy, who's in my circle. And the problem with the good old boy system, one, yes, I do think it's preventing talent. That's my guinea pig in the back. Y'all hear that? We like it's time to eat. The problem with it is it ignores credentials, it ignores experience, it doesn't vet. It's just, I know you. They might have had actually a good product, absolutely, but it doesn't always line up with the needs of that position that's posted. So yeah, great, you built a band program. I challenge people on this all the time because in the DMV, the teacher pay is high. It's like Maryland's number 6. That's why I ain't going nowhere. I'm sorry, y'all. I don't care how big band is in another state. I'm just too used to a certain style of living and still feeling like I could get a good product where I am and still have support. But a lot of people always constantly say, oh, I could come up there and build a band program. And I look at them like, you a dumbass. No, you can't. I do, because I'm like, you don't know the culture up here. You don't know anything about the school systems up here. You don't know anything about how principals run programs. You don't know anything about what the community expects out of bands up here. You just know that you come from somewhere where band might be popular and equally supported, or that more supported where you're from. But, you know, that's like, you can go in a store and see a dress on a hanger and it says it's a size 12. and you say, well, I wear a 12, and then you put it on, it doesn't fit right in all the right places. It's too tight on the top and loose on the bottom. Like, just because you have the general criteria doesn't mean that you're a good fit. And the good old boy system ignores the fit of the dress. It just says, I'm a 12. I have a degree or not, which is a whole nother thing. That's a question coming up. But it doesn't look at quality. And then, unfortunately, we do get discrimination that goes into that because, you know, something that someone brought to my attention is that a lot of band directors, male band directors, don't want female staff because they don't want it to look a certain way. And by whether anything's going on or not, that's an intimate space to be on a band staff and to be an assistant director. And they don't want someone to be like, oh, they're married, but they are always with their assistant. But they don't look at it like that with male to male directors. So yeah, I think that good old boy system is hurting, but you can't tell that to people when it benefits them. That's like racism. Racism benefits somebody, you know, especially systemic racism. And what we have is a systemic issue now that we're starting to see the revolving door of directors, and I wonder why. Like, if you hired them and you thought they were a good fit, if you vetted them, then they shouldn't be leaving out the door at 6 months, or you looking under the table for a replacement and their contract hasn't even, the ink hasn't even dried, and you making an offer on the position because you made a mistake. You didn't vet them. You chose a name, you chose what somebody said, and you didn't vet whether or not they can actually do the job for you, your respective community. I don't know, Chuck, what you got?
No, I definitely agree with what both of you guys said. And we've learned this as musicians, that when we rush the process, you know, if we're working on a new piece or something, then we always end up having to go back and, you know, slow the pace wins the race. And I say that because Lauren was talking about it briefly. Our PWIs are starting to get it. They're starting to hire us. And I, you know, my KK side line brother is over diversity and inclusion at Oklahoma State University. You know, he was over resident life at Bethune-Cookman, you know, University for some years before he went to OSU. And, you know, OSU just hired Dr. Devin Moore, and she's a Florida A&M alum. And, you know, again, you're starting to see it. I mean, we can name a host of directors that are at, you know, these, you know, big PWI schools, and then our HBCUs are just, you know, like you said, not going through the process with fidelity. If you would vet these individuals, go through, again, we go back to that FAMU process, and that was highly documented, of them having to come in to present certain things to the students, to the university, to conduct, to do rehearsals while faculty and staff and even alum were there watching and critiquing, you know, and that's even difficult for the individual that maybe had been in that space like an interim and then having to do that. That's a whole nother thing as well too. You know, I couldn't imagine being at a job and then my job is posted while I'm working at that job. Like I'd be flipping, you know, my brain would be spinning, you know, just kind of being working.
Doesn't happen.
Right. And it happens. And so, and I feel bad, you know, I wish, you know, individuals that are in those positions, you know, well, but again, going back to, and I know you're going to talk about it later, the credentials, like, you know, we always learn that, you know, the bachelor degree is like the high school degree, and then the master degree now is like the bachelor degree, you know, and then now the doctorate, like they once you get that doctorate, it still doesn't end. You know, you're still required for research, and we're not even talking about tenure, you know, and things like that goes on. I know some directors in positions that have been there for over 10 years and they're not up for tenure. because of just things not, and again, it goes to that good old boy, who you know, who you don't know. And in the end, and we do it to ourselves. We do it to ourselves, as a Black and brown community. Yeah, we trying to help our people out, but are we really trying to help our people out? In terms of growth and progression and stuff. And I'm all about young talent. If they're young, they're talented, but you gotta have the experience. We know having the experience, you can't have, and I'm not throwing shade, I'm just being honest, man. You can't be on the university level if you haven't done some of these things on the level prior. You haven't taken a group to festival. I haven't seen multiple ensembles. I haven't seen you run a program by yourself. Because again, on the university level, it's supposed to be the top level. The top level. I remember when I was at A&T and Dr. Ruff was very specific. He's like, anybody that's going to be on my staff is going to be highly degreed, certified, or working towards something. You're not just going to be a former band member and on this staff. I'm going to give you some time, but at a point I'm going to cut you off because I need you to grow. This is a collegiate program. You have to have those individuals surrounding, the director of bands. And so again, I'm all about that young talent, but you got to know what you're doing. You got to know what you're doing. And so, again, somebody Moore was talking about, he's a Jackson State alum at LSU. Yeah, Dr. Calvin Jones, one of my mentors. Again, you look at some of these individuals, people don't know. Another individual, Kedrick Taylor, he had a killer high school program, before he got on that staff. And it's and even Chipman went away. Dr. White went away. All these individuals, they were there. Their mentor said, you got to go away and do it. And then come back home, if a position is opened up. And so we do definitely, this good old boy system does prevent our HBCUs from having the best candidates for the job, to be able to handle all aspects of the job, not just what we see, in the bright lights. There's so much more to it. And that's why the revolving door happens. That's why the revolving door happens, in my opinion.
And I'm glad you said that. In just some comments from the chat about that good old boy system, there's a morality issue. There is when you hire your friends, you wink at their antics because that's your friend. And then we see situations that causes the revolving door. And I'm like, y'all didn't research this person? Whatever happened to background checks, y'all? It's crazy to me.
But when folks be turning a blind eye.
I know, but it's insane.
There be stuff clear as day. Let me tell you, I'm going to be honest, man. I've had some people trying to get in these positions that are highly degreed and certified and have experience, but they have been overlooked by people that have criminal records, that have records of, mess, and individuals that are not clear and articulate to run a collegiate program. But because of hype, because of what people think they're doing,
oh Lord Jesus,
it puts folks in. I mean, we see it in other areas. It happens in athletics all the time. I know we keep saying that, but band and athletics, have a lot of similarities. And I'm fortunate. Our head football coach at my high school, he's a former all-state saxophone player. So he gets it. He gets it, and we always have great conversations. But again, you see that, individuals that just being overlooked because they don't know, certain individuals. Now, I'm all about networking. It's important, but I'm gonna tell you, sometimes, that networking, it can put folks in, positions that they're not ready for. I was always told that, the worst thing is for you to get what you want if you're not ready for it.
The thing though, just kind of, there's so much, there's so much with this topic. That overlooking someone who has a clean slate, but the hype isn't there. That hype is starting to be like band directors are starting to look like superstars to me. just in all the antics, it's starting to look kind of Hollywood. And that's not saying that the directors that we see aren't good, but there's definitely a certain level of sensationalism that is now behind choices. And when it comes to schools,
yeah,
it's another thing about sensationalism.
I've heard about schools, university presidents who wanted to hire band directors based on the band program they marched in college. And it didn't matter what credentials they had. They wanted them to be just like that school's marching band. I'm not going to say the school, but I've heard two instances where that happened. One of those instances, the university president, they were cutting the concert band program and the university jazz program to like 1 or 2 days a week and having marching band the rest of the week, because the university president wanted to be like their school because that's their alma mater. So we have administration who don't know how bands work. And on top of that, we have some administration who watches YouTube videos, or they went to that school. They went to that school and that marching band is famous. So they become leadership at another school and they want to emulate that process without knowing what that band director, those band directors of their school had to do to get to that point. Without any advice from the music department, I don't even think they cared about asking the department chair, well, how do we get here? Or any expert about it. They just say, oh, I want this. And, the emulating of other band programs, it makes your, like, that's terrible marketing for your university, because it doesn't make your university unique. When you're a band emulating another band, and we've seen that from a program, they're emulated. They came together, those students from other schools, they came together and emulated another band. That's weird to me. I don't know how else to say it. Like, you have administrators that say, okay, I want our school to be like this, without researching the history of the school that you're working in. What was your band like? Your own collegiate band program should be closer to the history of what the band was like there, not like anybody else's. So, yeah.
Agreed.
Facts.
It's great value. You just made your school a great value version. It's like, you want to be great value, so you hire somebody from that school thinking that their identity is going to do what for your school. Your school has an identity, and that other person coming in does not know that school's identity. They know the identity that they come from. And back to the dress on the rack, may not fit right just because they were able to, those students are groomed a certain way. The instructors of those students gear things a certain way that works with what's happening at that school. So when you bring in somebody from somewhere else, it can be good or bad. And I think the bad is when administrations choose somebody and they don't vet them. They don't put them in front of the students. That was very important, Chuck. What you said is that we used to call them field lessons, where you come in, do this. I got hired at a KIPP school. I had to do a field lesson. They gave me students and they said, turn in a lesson plan and show me how you get through the process of teaching students, running your rehearsal, whatever. And it was grueling, because those students don't have allegiance to you. All you have is your skills in the now. And that tells a lot. But look at the comment that Oscar Wright said, 45 became president with no experience. And that is, if the highest level in the land can just be someone who has not a clue about politics, anything related to the job, and get and almost get elected again. People will vote, and they know he was terrible. It's not I'm not going to argue but it's just a lot different from Obama to him. I don't care if you think Obama did nothing for the country. Knowing your craft looks a lot different than someone who doesn't know the craft or isn't familiar with the landscape. So I'm gonna drop this next question in, because we could talk about good old boys all day long. But the next question is, does the hire your own model work for HBCUs? And I'm talking not just band directors, I'm talking faculty, I'm talking private lesson instructors, because that minority is not included. When it comes to the music department, it becomes, well, you already know. A lot of us we all went to HBCUs, and if we rattle off the demographics of our music departments, they don't reflect the students that are getting taught. So, yeah. So the question is there. Does the hire your own model work for HBCUs? I don't know. I already know. I won't say I know. I have a lot of a different perspective on it.
Yeah, without us three knowing like individuals like in our specific department, we probably have a lot of similar stories. I was having a conversation with somebody not too long ago, and we were just talking about the amount of adjunct faculty, within the department. And I do feel that, having diversity in our department does help. I had an applied instructor that was from Eastman, at one point, and that was extremely helpful and eye-awakening. Like, oh man, this is the stuff that you guys do there. He exposed me to smart music in the early 2000s. That was like when it first started. And I was like, man, what is this? I hated it. It didn't work that well, but it got the point across. Like, hey, I need to practice more. And so I struggled with this because, again, you want to look out for your own, but your own has to be right, in terms of in terms of their credentials and their experience and stuff like that. Like, I think that's being a better friend, to be like, hey, look, like, I don't think you're ready for XYZ, and I think a good friend. And a lot of times, like, I've seen friendships in the field, go completely left because somebody was honest or didn't hook them up. Or you didn't hook me up the job, or you didn't put in a good word or whatever. Like, there's nothing wrong with, doing that. But again, we do. And Krystal, when you were talking about your process for the KIPP school, that reminded me of my process when I was in Chicago. I had 3 different points that I had to be with students. I had to go there. I had to do a lesson. The next one, I had to do interviews where they interviewed me. And then I had to play in front of administration and some students as well. Like, that was all in like 2 days, because they wanted to make sure that, that I have. I said, yeah, somebody said adjunct. Yeah, I agree. So, and at that school specifically, they hired people based on, did we look like the student body? To be honest, of course they vetted us on the education side, but that's what we were looking for. Now, we did have a few teachers that didn't look like anything in the South Side of Chicago, but they were so good, and then they got it. It worked. It worked, and it kind of opened up our kids' eyes to some different things. So again, I just feel that we have to do better amongst us as HBCU alums, is having our stuff in order if we do want to hold these positions and be in these positions. But when you have an HBCU and you have so many teachers in a department that don't know the history or tradition of the school, and have very little investment in it, they're just there for a check. I had one professor that just kind of came in and left. He did his couple classes, left. And I get it. He's probably doing that at a few other schools, but it was like, man, like, I don't think you understand that I have practiced till 11 every day, you know, or this, then the third. And of course I get it, you know, it's their class. You got to, you know, do what you got to do to reach their standard. But, you know, when I've been in departments where everybody has been, for the majority has been full time at the school, it was just a better look. And of course, having professors that look like you and I. But then again, some of those individuals didn't rock with each other. You know, I had some professors like, what you doing in the jazz band? Or you need to just do this, you need to just do that, you know? And so unfortunately, it puts us, like, as the student, as a huge disadvantage. And so, again, you know, we want to hire within our own, we do, because we hope they get it, but it just doesn't happen that way, because just, I don't know, we have to do better. You know, when I hear that, that's what I think. We have to do better if we really want these positions.
The proverbial you. Yeah. I did want to read this. There were a few comments that came up. One, Oscar said, in the words of wise director, you hire what's best for your program. That's back to that thing. What's best for the program? Homegrown is nice, but homegrown doesn't always guarantee the right success. For my last position, the director was there for 42 years. Kind of similar to Melvin and Miles. Like, he was there. He was the identity of the program. He started it. Everybody knew him in the district. Everybody, like, he was well known. But I'm not an alum of that school. And they historically, first of all, it's an all-girl school. Historically, all-girl program, like no boys. So that means identity-wise, when he was retiring, he was looking for actually a woman to be the next band director, because he felt like the school could use, in the students, back to what's best for your program, could use seeing themselves reflected. Drew said something about his alma mater. He said, you know, he's an adjunct at his alma mater. It helps to form relationships, connect with current students. It also helps with maintaining the right traditions. Keyword right. All traditions aren't right. Some of us got traditions of hazing, and we keep hiring our own and wonder why we getting shut down every 5 minutes, because you keep hiring.
Doesn't stop.
Yeah, you haven't changed. You don't have anybody with a different perspective on your school.
You know, I kind of related to, and I agree with Chuck. If you're going to hire your own, you have to make sure your own is good. You have to make sure your own is right. I'm blessed with being from NCCU, where in the jazz band program, they're NCCU alum, charter members of the Zeta Sigma chapter of Kappa Kappa Psi. And one of them, he just recently passed away, Mr. George. So it's a blessing to have history within your music department. But also it could be a double-edged sword, because like Krystal said, if you have a certain tradition and you hire within, that tradition will keep going. I compare it to, I would say, like, and this is going on the deep end, but you can't marry your own family. You know, you can't marry your own family and then produce children with family members, because they end up getting the same diseases, the same type of conditions. And eventually the family line will be messed up to a point. I'll say this, if you hire your own alum, and I hope, you know, the music departments and the schools of music are good enough so that they can hire their own alum, kick them out into the world, send them somewhere, send them places so that they could be better prepared to take on your program. You shouldn't have them, you know, just go to school, graduate, and then come back in that same town area and then say, okay, I'm ready to take on this position. They need to have different perspectives from different conferences, having different private lessons instructors from not just in the country, but all over the world, going to different schools for their master's or their doctorate, just so they could gain perspectives to create their own perspective. I think if you are an alum and you get hired with your alma mater, there's certain things you need to bring gifts to your school. You need to bring different types of knowledge to your school to add to the program. It should be beneficial to the program. You should be able to advance your program with the information that you learn globally, nationally, or internationally. It shouldn't be the exact same from before, especially if the tradition is a cancer. It has to filter out some way. I like what Oscar said, hire whoever's good for the program. Also, if it is crazy because at HBCUs, if you don't hire your own or people from other HBCUs, it kind of shows that you don't trust your own product. And there are departments that purposely don't hire their own because they want to be like the white college down the street. We're going to hire from the white college, so we'll look good. We'll send our students out, but we're not going to hire them back because we want people to have these type of credentials or look a certain type of way so we can be competitive. And to that I say, what does it mean to be competitive according to your department? If you want to be competitive, create your students such that they'll be able to come back and maintain the competition. Don't send them out and then hire outside people. The entire department shouldn't be outside people. You should have a certain type of loyalty to your alumni as well. If they have the credentials, if they have the experience, if they have the know-how.
And I think that balance, like I've seen that word flow through the chat, balance. No, we can't hire, all of the alum just because they're alum. That's stupid. They got to have credentials. They should have credentials. They should have been a good product from your school, because I'm gonna say that after I say what I said, because I got a controversial statement, and I don't care if somebody want to check me for it, but there should be some balance. Like, let's be honest, all the adjuncts shouldn't be white, y'all. Like, why? How the hell did I get out of this?
Or Asian, or white, or Asian,
or anything but.
Because look, my clarinet instructors, they were white or Asian. They're good, but they weren't
piano instructors.
Yeah.
And I am glad, I'll say, like, the music department at Morgan was diverse. Like, I had my music history teacher was a Black woman. She graduated from Spelman, Melissa Hendricks. She's a band director in North Carolina, I think a middle school band director, but she was getting her doctorate, and she got us right. She got us right in music history. I mean, half of my approach to music, I can thank her for, because she knew her shit. And she looked like me. But at the same time, I had an Asian clarinet instructor, but he was diverse, even in a sense, because he was a military brat. He went to North Texas, but he was a jazz cat. So the candidate should bring something new to the table as well. That's like, we keep eating fried. I say it all the time. We can't eat fried chicken every day. And people always think that I'm being bougie when I say that. What I'm saying is, to have a balanced diet, you need diverse things on the plate. And in at our HBCUs, that plate looking bland. It's looking bland. It don't have no salt. It don't have no pepper. It barely has butter. And wonder why our students aren't coming out apt to teach anywhere.
And it's weird because it's either, with our HBCUs, it's either one side or the other. There's no in between. In our quest, in the HBCU's quest to figure out how to be more competitive and how to be more marketable, you know, some are just saying, we're just not going to hire our own. Just, you know, we're just going to hire people from conservatories or, you know, this type of school to make us look competitive. Others are saying, you know, we need to be loyal to our alumni. So let's just hire alumni. Let's hire from within the band program. Let's turn them into assistant band directors. Let's give them a coat so we can show loyalty to our alumni. And I do agree with you saying there has to be a balance of knowledge, because you have to realize these are universities. You are a program of higher learning. So if you don't have world perspectives within your program, then how is it going to survive?
I think that segues a little bit into why some of our HBCU graduates are not 21st century ready to teach. Like, they're ready to teach in a century, but it ain't nothing. There's nothing new about their practices. They don't have enough tools in their toolbox. The whole reason I started a Facebook group called the Band Directors Toolbox was because when I got out of school, I felt like I had tools, but I needed more. And so I think, agreeing with you, Lauren, people have to get out. They have to, even if they're going to come back to their college or their HBCU, even if they're going to come back on any aspect, even if it is to just be adjunct, even if it is to just teach a class, you need to have a different perspective from your HBCU. And you know, a lot of people may have an issue with this, but that's why I went to a PWI for grad school. It wasn't that I didn't trust the information I got from my HBCU, but I wanted to see different perspectives, different teaching practices from what I was used to, because HBCUs is comfortable to us because everybody looks like us. Everybody thinks like us, in a sense of that common goal of why we're there. Most of the time it's because we want to be in a circle of people who come from our experiences. And, you know, this question, how many band directors are really in on the hiring process? You know, I can say at Morgan, Melvin and Miles was involved. That's why a lot of people was, you know, doing a little too much. I was like, let me tell you, whoever is in that seat is going to get the stamp of approval from him. That doesn't happen in every situation. My situation at Western, I got the stamp of approval. Did they still interview other people? Yes. And at the end of the day, I can say, like, if you pulled our resumes, I still was more qualified. So I don't think it's abandon ship with qualifications and hire our own, but I also don't think that it should be just like, oh, we trust it. We do need a balance. We do, like, can't eat fried chicken every day. And if you do, use adobo. I don't know, like, use something different. When it comes to minorities not included, why is it that our music departments and our band programs are so egregiously on two different pages? Sometimes it has to me, in that hiring process, there was something missed. Either they just there for the athletic band and things have been so separated. Whether that's a good thing or bad thing, that's up for debate. I think it's a bad thing. A lot of people think it's a good thing. I'm like, no, because those students are shared. And that was like, to me, it's like, I'm a parent. Chuck, you're a parent. If Evelyn says, hey, Mom, can I go to this concert, but it ends at 1 a.m.? You, Dad, like, concert ends at 1 a.m.? No, you could go to a concert, but you need to find a time that's going to be conducive to your age. And then Evelyn goes back and says, Dad said I can go. I think we end up putting two parents against each other. She must have heard it. We put two, and that's why we have students whose allegiance is torn. That's when we have kids who won't do wind ensemble because their band director said, you know, you're not a music major, so you don't need to be in wind ensemble or whatever. You don't need to take lessons. Like one of the best things that happened in my time at Morgan was non-music majors could take private lessons, unlimited. That changes the game. But if the music department is like, I don't want nobody in my studio unless they're a major, you already have dissension between, and that's going to affect the growth of the program too. That's my opinion.
Nah, you totally right on that. And we've all been in those situations where we see faculty members not get along with each other or have their issues. You know, they try to professionally not show it to the students, but it happens because you're there all the time and you see it and you know who rock with who and who doesn't, you know, and we're the ones in the middle. You know, we're trying to get these lessons from each of these teachers, but with it not being on the same page, then we lose out. You know, I was talking to Dr. Sam Rowley some years ago, and he was like, Charles, do you know our HBCUs are the only ones that require the director of bands to do as much as they do? He's like, if you go look at your other schools, you have one that just does the marching band, one that does the jazz, one that does the wind ensemble. You got, you know, maybe a couple secretaries in the department, right? And that's where it comes to, you know, let's just be honest. The finances, you know, the finances in terms of like hiring enough people to do the job. I remember I sat down with a chancellor at one of my alma maters, I won't say where, and they brought some alumni in some years ago. And we were just talking about the state of the band program, and he was asking for suggestions and stuff. And I said, do you know who's on your football staff? And he was like, what do you mean? I was like, the positions that are in there. He's like, I know some, you know. And I was like, do you know a collegiate football staff has a head coach, 1 to 2 assistants, a defense coach, an offense coach, a special teams coach. You got people that are just recruiting, you know, a scout that's just recruiting. And then you got folks that are in the box, you know, that are up there, you know, scouting things out while the plays are in real time. I was like, there's so many people. I was like, do you know how many band directors we have that's there every day at your school? We've one, you know, and this individual is older in age as well too. And I'm like, it's very unfair and unrealistic, you know, that this individual doesn't have help. Now, sometimes in the department, yeah, I know you can think about it. How many people in the department actually helped out with the university band? It may have been 1, 2 if you were lucky. You know, I think, Lauren, when you were in school, you had, you know, both Dr. Rowley and now Dr. Lawhorn, you know, and now Dr. Reed, like all together, like working in the department, working with the university band. And that's a perfect example of the program just, you know what I'm saying, just getting better, you know, because folks putting, you know, their ego to the side for the betterment of the kids, you know, and unfortunately,
you mean you can put an ego to the side?
And it's hard. I mean, and I've been thinking about this as well too. As musicians, we have to play with edge. We have to play with some confidence. We have to play like we're the ish. We have to do that, you know, especially trumpet players. I always say this about trumpet players. Like trumpet players are extremely cocky because you've had melody since you started playing the instrument, you know, and that could be for some other ones, but for some other instruments. But I say that because, like, as musicians, we're required to have this emotion and have all of these things embody us as musicians, but then we have to learn how to put them to the side, and that's hard. You know what I'm saying? That's we all have to learn that, you know. Some folks don't want to get off the podium. Some folks, you know, don't want anybody running a sectional outside of them. Like, hey, these are mine. You know, like it's tough, and we hurt ourselves. I think that's gonna be my motto of our theme of this show. Like, we hurt ourselves if we really cared about our schools, if we really cared about our alma mater, and we would make sure that everybody's growing and progressing. You were mentioning about going places and getting different perspective. That's why I went to Vandercook. I heard so much about it. I knew of some legendary band directors that went there. And if you look at the history of our HBCUs, most of the directors came from the military, or they had some type of influence from the Midwest. And they went away, got this knowledge, came back, and started, building these programs and making them to what we know of today. But along the lines, we've missed that, like, only here. I think it's the same thing with, and this is me being transparent with folks saying, oh, I only want to be part of this organization, but I'm not going to be a part of this organization. I'm team blue, but I ain't gonna be team red. Like, it's the same thing. It's like, it doesn't make sense. Like, if it's all for the betterment of this thing we call music or community service or whatever, then, there's enough food to eat, but folks just want to eat the same food, if that makes sense, and again, do we trust our own product? Sometimes we don't. And even not trusting it, like McDonald's, we still go there. We still go to the places that we know we're
Chuck, put that on a shirt.
We still go.
We don't trust McDonald's, but we still in line.
Right, we
know that ice cream machine is gonna be down every time you go.
These are the devil. I'm showing myself. Look, you see these food apps, and I get all these notifications like buy one get one free and all this. I'm like, oh, leave me alone, but I still have it on my phone. Like, it's so
take his phone and delete the apps. Delete them. We're not
just turn off the notifications.
I know. But then sometimes it's like, oh man, that's a deal.
Time to just go to the notification, be like, no.
But then when it comes to our own, we know, like, okay, this person did such and such. Okay, cool. They from us. But then even thinking about, I do believe that we all can grow and develop. But there are certain things that are interwoven into our fabric, and there's certain things like I will never allow gentlemen to wear hats in the band building. And that just comes from me being a military brat, and just not allowing that in the band building, and so there's just certain things I'm just not going to let slide. And I don't care where I go. But then some of that stuff can be toxic. In our schools. And if we just kind of allow this cycle going on versus like, people going to get some perspective, then we can't be surprised when the same stuff happens over and over and over again. And we turn a blind eye to it because we would rather pick our own versus somebody that's going to come in and clean it, right, and then just being comfortable. Like, I was so excited, and again, I get it. Like Krystal, you mentioned, just about the feeling of, your band director actually being retired, and not seeing him there. I know how that feels, and then you have somebody come in. So while you are happy, knowing that they selected a really good candidate, you still have that process of like, man, this is going to be different.
It's like grief a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's like not grief like somebody unexpectedly gone. It's like you had time to process it, but you're still gonna miss them. You still gonna miss that interaction.
For sure. I mean, when Doc Hodge left at A&T, and even though we were bringing in our own, I was on the student panel when we interviewed several directors, for A&T. And even in that, we had a moment where men wanted somebody else based off what they saw, what they did at a previous school. And they almost made that happen without having the student interviews and due process. And that was a whole, ish storm. But anyways, they did the interviews, and I remember sitting in there, and I'm just being honest, we couldn't say anything in Dr. Ruff's interview, because we knew just how thorough he was. Who was going to check him? Former administrator, doctorate, multiple degrees, working with us. He's been affiliated with the band since the early 80s, and we were like, what are we going to ask this man that he can't tell us, and so that process was one of those situations that we would hope somebody from your own that is ready. I call it the LeBron James effect. You got the experience, you got the talent, and you got the credentials. And, you can see where the band program is now. And so, but when we don't have that from our own, it's like, hey, man, you got a shot. But, and we know these positions are coveted, especially like high school band directors. Like, the revolving door is not as open as it is that we see on a collegiate level. Like, they're guarded positions. There's certain schools that there's just going to be somebody there for a long time. But if we don't respect it, us, and have those individuals, hey, go here, go do this, go do that. Again, Dr. Rowley was like, hey, you need to go away for graduate school. Don't stick around here. You need to go away. You need to go away. You need to be in class. I was thinking about some online at that one point. He's like, nah, you need to do your master's in person. Go there. You need to get there, get that work, get beasted. It's going to make you better. You're going to have a different perspective. And so, a lot of times we try to, that old saying, the game is to be sold, not to be told. But we end up doing ourselves worse, in the outcome because we don't help each other get better. Like, folks don't know this process. Like you're talking about today, the process.
They don't know.
They have no clue of the
Nope.
things that they're going to be asked, the things they're going to be required to do, what some of these universities and schools are offering. And you're like, you serious? I could stay in public schools, or I could be doing something else. Like, this is not helping me, not providing moving assistance for families, not, providing a clean slate. You coming in, I've always thought when you come in behind somebody, you find their dirty laundry, still lingering stuff going on. And you got to come in and, like we were mentioning, August 1 for a lot of these positions. They got a game in 2 weeks.
Like that part right there, they got a game
in 2 weeks.
They got freshman orientation now. It's now.
Especially Lauren, you got your alma mater's got a game, a big game. Like, this is the first time that Aggie Eagle has been when it is since I was in school.
Actually, the last time it was the first game, it was my first year at Central. It was still Eagle Aggie Classic. And it was still the Classic. And it was still at NC State. And it was always the first
game. That was the last time.
And that's why us alumni, we were stressed out. I was one of them, and I was talking junk online. And but it wasn't at the band program. It was at the administration. It makes us feel like y'all don't care.
Right.
That's what it was. And in my marketing class, they said the first thing about marketing is it's not about you. It's not about the company. It's about transparency with the customer. And that could be applied to your alumni, to your students and your alumni. Nobody was transparent. They sent out a little letter saying, we're looking for a band director. It's like, okay, it's July. Oh, A&T is the first game. It's stressful. Even if you're not in the program anymore, you want your program to do well. Like, I wouldn't wish that on A&T. I wouldn't wish that on any college.
Right,
right. And we just want our students and the band staff, to be prepared. There's still a staff there. We found out, there's still staff, and they were prepared. But it makes us look. It's the optics of it. It makes it look bad.
Right.
That there isn't a head person there, and we got our first game with our rival in T-minus less than 2 months. So yeah. I also wanted to speak on the whole idea of being a student. You have to be a certain type of student in the music department and then a certain type of student in the band program. I hate that the music departments, sometimes they don't support the band programs because they look at the music majors like, oh, they're just band kids. And you treat them as such. So they're going to act like band kids. And that was my experience at NCCU. We had professors discriminate against the band students, even when we had a trip, letting them know, we won't be in class because the band, our ensemble, we have something to do. And it's like, well, that doesn't matter. It's going to be absence counted against you. And, those types of things, just because they don't rock with the band program.
Yeah.
And it made me feel some type of way towards my department So, and I kind of regret it because I feel like I wasn't participating in the department as much as I was with the band program. Like I could tell you things about the band, things that happened, good stories. With the music department, I'm kind of like, I I love the jazz band program. We have an excellent Grammy Award winning vocal jazz ensemble group. I'm not going to take that away from them, but my experience, my memories isn't with the music department. It's with the band program. Mm-hmm. If you're going to treat them as band students, they're going to act like it. Sometimes, band kids, they go to college and they become music majors because it's what they know. And instead of you trying to cultivate and grow on what they know or what they don't know, you just write them off as other band students. They're not going to make it through this. And, it just makes the process harder. And you're simultaneously hurting the music program. And, that sucks. It really does. I heard that the music department has a small amount of music majors. That's what I've heard. I don't know if it's true. And it breaks my heart because, we used to have a lot of music majors. Now there's a small amount. And the way you treat the band program, you're not supporting the band program. That's your recruiting tool for the music department. Let the band program filter into the music department so you have more music majors. But if you're not supporting them, then you're not going to have music majors. And see, we don't think like that. And I'm not saying everything should be about the band within the music department, but treat all of your ensembles equally. Treat them equally, give them the same amount of support, and the students will recruit for you. You don't even have to recruit. Use your students to bring in more students to the music department. Kind of like a freaking pyramid scam, if I said it right. But
you are.
But Laura, I want to push back on that recruit a little bit because one begots the other. So say that you don't have the best music majors. You have students who are not serious, students who cut lessons to go to step practice. Yeah. Let's just say what it is. And you wearing letters on your chest because you rather be at a probate instead of in rehearsal.
We do it to ourselves.
We do it to ourselves. And I'm telling you, I know people will be like, why are you putting that out there? Because we do it to ourselves. And that's why sometimes the music department and the band are so defunct and disjunct from each other.
But see, also, those things happen because they don't have support from the music department. It's a vicious cycle. It really is. Because those students, they're going to participate in the things that are gratifying to them. Step practice is gratifying to them. Being a part of an organization is gratifying to them because they're a part of something. If the music department doesn't show that same loyalty to the students, then they're going to do that. Now, the bottom line is you should go to college to graduate, not become a part of an organization. So, and I'm in 3 of them, so it's like, ugh. And I understand the whole like red team, blue team analogy because I'm both. So yeah, it's like everybody can eat. You can go to step practice. You can also be a part of the music, a major part of the music department, and support them and help cultivate the music department as a student. Talk with professors, but also the professors have to be open to all of the students, not just a certain type. Like, oh, I only like instrumentalists, or no, I only like vocalists. Those band people, I just can't deal with them. The students are a product of their environment. So if they are discouraged from one area, they're going to go into an area where they're encouraged. Yeah, I understand your pushback, Krystal, but also that type of environment is cultivated by a lack of what's more important. The music department, being a music major and studying is more important than going, in my opinion, than step practice or or your organization. Now your organization should work towards the band program or music program or whatever, But the bottom line is you should be a student to graduate. The issue is not having the accessibility, or professors and counselors too, let's talk about them, and advisors not creating the access for you to be successful, because there's that too. I didn't want to leave that out.
Yeah, I wanted to tag on to that. I'm going to continue to push back, because in some cases that is not why students choose what they choose. In some, there's a power struggle, and Drew just put it, between department chairs and director of bands, and the children are in the crossfire of all of that crap. Yeah. They are in the crossfire. It's not because, it's back to that analogy of two different parents. If mom says I can go eat ice cream for dinner, I'm going to go with whatever mom says, because mom is giving me what instant gratification. But at the same time, sometimes we have department chairs and director of bands who are having power struggles and ego that has nothing to do with the betterment of the entire organization, whether that's band or the music department. Because so-and-so, and especially when it's, and this is just being real, if they both came from the same university. Mm-hmm. If they both, I sometimes see less of a power struggle. And I'm saying that, because now I have some college experience, like instructional experience. It's sometimes better when they're not, why don't we hire our own? When they're not our own, because that person comes in without all of the, I got something to prove. I wasn't a good student. Now I'm trying to prove that I'm a good student, or prove that I can do it, because we do have these, like, just to be honest, when it comes to the music majors that are in band, they are torn between two different mindsets, especially when the faculty don't look like them, or they're not of the culture.
It's like they're code switching between the band and the music department. It's weird.
It's very weird. And that code switching, somebody loses. Somebody, we don't talk about that. Somebody loses. If you tell me that in order for me to get this sound or whatever, I need to not be in marching band my entire time there. And if I got enough credits, now the band has lost a polished musician, because now that person, they do want to graduate. They want to get out. They want to get a job. And if their studio professor is telling them that playing like this is going to ruin their chops, it's going to ruin their armature. And I'm not saying it can or can't. I'm just saying this. You got two different people in your ear. And it's not going to produce any synchronicity. So when it comes to hiring your own, why don't we? Part of it is because we kick our own ass sometimes. Like directors kick their own ass, tell him that blah, blah, blah. Tell her, we got a game. And sometimes they don't necessarily need all members present for everything. Like, there's no compromise sometimes when it comes to just thinking about departmental recitals that fall on the same time as a university event. There is sometimes someone has to compromise. And when we got egos at play, and we got people who aren't there for the betterment of the whole team, just team I or team mine, that's why I think universities, why don't we hire our own? And that's why we get, white professors that teach everything else, because they're not invested in the culture of the band. So they trust that, they're going to be enforce the students graduate. How many of us know career band students?
Yeah.
And not saying that life doesn't happen. Life happens. But like you said, your goal should be to graduate. Like, your goal should be to put members out. But back again, we care about numbers over everything. Even if those numbers, knees don't work no more. That's a body on the field. Like, we got the bodies, but I'm like, but those things are falling apart. And it does affect the whole program. So I just think the reason I push back on that, students, students need things that have buy-in, which while that hiring process should involve students. Students should be able to sit there and talk to the potential candidates, at least at the, like if you do certain rounds, like, you know, the interview, the call. I used to do it for Baltimore City Schools. I was the first round. And if I looked at your resume and I couldn't check off all those boxes of those things, whatever the basic requirements were, then you didn't make it to round 2. You didn't make it to the music coordinator. You didn't make it to be able to interview with a principal. A lot of school districts are like that now. That's why when people send me that message, oh, I could come out that building band. I said, you're not going to make it past first round. You're not going to make it past first round because you don't have your certificate. You're not going to make it past the first round because you don't have an experience. You're not going to make it past the first round because you don't have a degree in music. So strike 3, you're out. You're not going to make it past that round. Yeah, I can come build a band. No, you can't, because you're not even going to get in the door. Now, other districts, other universities, different perspectives when it comes to credentials. But at the end of the day, we kick our own ass. And it becomes a vicious cycle where we hire who we trust. We hire what we know. If that person wasn't good undergrad, but time does create different products. I'm definitely not the musician I was in undergrad. Even though I was studying then, the musician I now am, I have a worldview and a lot of tools in my box that if somebody said, well, I remember when your freshman year, like, don't hold that against me. So I don't think it should be all like you had to be first chair. But I do think you need to show that you studied to show thyself approved. And with our HBCU, sometimes, you know, we still scraping the bottom of the barrel, even with our own. And it could be for various reasons.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with all of that. And I've had all of those experiences and then some at 2 different HBCUs. But in my graduate school, you know, most of the professors that are there, even the undergraduate dean, the graduate dean, and the president are all alums from that school. And I've seen it work on the other side. Like, they all respect the school so much that they don't do anything to compromise its integrity. These are we use this thing called the conducting etude by H.E. Nutt, and that has been done since the school opened. Everybody is required to know that back and front from the beginning, you know, the school opened all the way to their recent graduates that just graduated yesterday. And so I've seen a department work together. Once we got done with graduate wind ensemble, we went over to graduate concert choir. Everybody had to go over there. There's no excuse. You can't finish the program without doing that. And you know, and then we had the schedule was set up that we could do all of that. One of my biggest regrets is in undergrad is not being part of university choir. I couldn't. The schedule was just not conducive. We met at the same time as university choir, and there was no way that, you know, we had very few that were interchanged. I don't even know how they made that happen. And so when you have a department that doesn't work together and the schedule is not conducive to the student, then how do you expect, you know, the student to get everything that they need? Like you mentioned, I remember we had recital seminar at A&T on Wednesdays. You knew at 2:00, everybody was going to be in there. But, you know, if we had this performance here, we had this, or we had this there, it was like, how am I supposed to be in 2 places at once? And as a student, I'm trying to figure that out. If you're on any type of scholarship, you probably know where you're going to go first, because that's going to mess up a whole bunch of other stuff if you're not at that place that's paying majority of your bill. You know, and so again, the students end up losing out, and that has been something synonymous when I've talked to other music majors from HBCUs, that they deal with these same issues. You know, you have the band director that doesn't take any ish and doesn't listen to anybody else, you know, or you got the chair that doesn't like the band director, or the choir director doesn't like the band director, or vice versa. And it's the same thing over and over and over. And it's again, it's just egos. It's just egos. And also money as well too. You get one person is getting paid more than the other, and then maybe the other person that's not getting paid as much has more experience or more credentials than the other person. So they're like, wait a minute, I've been doing this for that long, and this person just got here, and they get so it's a lot, you know, as a aspiring, you know, collegiate professor. Sometimes I look at some of that, I was like, man, do I even want it? Like, it makes me sick to my stomach, you know.
Chuck, that's the truth.
It makes me sick to my stomach when I hear some of the things that are going on. And a lot of times I have conversations with directors like, or even now, this is perfect. I promise it'll be quick. I was at I was working this summer. I ain't gonna say what it is because I don't want to give any names, but it was collegiate directors at 2 HBCUs. They have great programs. And they were like, man, this internet is making us not want to do this. Like, one of these directors is like, I ran into one of these folks that was talking on the internet. I just happened to run into them, and he had to check them. Be like, I saw what you put. Give me that same energy right now. If not, keep your mouth closed. And of course, we know that individual in that position could definitely lose his job if he got into a physical altercation with somebody, or, you know what I'm saying? He has more to lose than the other. But both of those directors, I'm just sitting there, and one director's here, one's right here, and I'm just listening. And they're just talking about just the banter, the negativity, and from our own, not from anybody else, but from our own, and how it makes their job horrible, and how some of them would rather do something else, you know, but they're staying for their kids, you know, and of course to continue the program, you know, but all this outside stuff, it makes it sickening, you know. And again, you try not to read the comments, you try not to look on the internet, but we got this attached to our hip, and things travel, you know. Bad news travels real quick, you know, and it's unfortunate because these directors are having to put energy, you know, into diffusing situations, you know, that are from our own versus like the bigger picture. How can we make our programs better? And that's the word y'all have been saying since the jump: programs, like comprehensive programs, not just one facet. And you know, too many times we overlook individuals that, you know, are, because again, at our HBCUs, that director is going to have to do more than one job. You know, is going to have to do multiple jobs. And sometimes we get individuals in positions that are okay at one, but have no clue in the others. And it's like, you know, the students lose out. So,
but that's that vetting thing. You know, you would find those things out in a comprehensive interview or a series of interviews. You will find that out if you have a panel interview where people can ask those questions that you, even if you're the department chair, might not be thinking about. If you have a panel, and I can just, you know, say off of what I know with Morgan's panel, there was department chair, the president was in on it, faculty was in on it. Like, it was comprehensive. So if anybody feels some kind of way about that selection, I would say you don't understand. Morgan did their due diligence in that selection. And that's not saying shade to anybody that applied, because a lot of the candidates, I looked at it and said, damn, it could be anybody. Like, that's what you want.
Oh, yeah.
I was literally like, damn. Well, if it was so-and-so, if it was this person, because I got students who are still in that band right now, former students. So, you know, they're going to tell me, like, this one of you, do you know so-and-so? And I'm like, yep, I know them. What do you think? Y'all can't go wrong with anybody. And that's indicative of a quality interview.
Right, process. Yeah.
Whether I think there were any women on it or not, it's just the fact that when I looked at credentials, I said, damn, yeah, we're gonna be in good hands. And that, for alumni perspective, that makes us feel, you know, that there's comfort in that, even though you always gonna love your director. This question came up a while ago: how many department chairs actually marched in HBCU bands? When you're department chair, see, we kind of get blindsided and think that the department chair is an instrumentalist.
No, it could be an art teacher.
It could be an art teacher.
Yeah.
It could be the theater department.
And let me tell you, I've seen that work
all the time.
because they don't have a bias in either. I've seen that work. One of the best department chairs I had was an art instructor.
Wow.
And he was just like, okay, we have this amount of money. We're going to give this to the band. We're going to give this to here. And he was not biased in it, you know. But when I've seen it go left is when you've had either or, band or choir. Or I've seen it, and I call this the Dr. William P. Foster effect, when you are the director of bands and the department chair of music. I've seen departments blossom because of that. Because as a band director, they always say we make great administrators. You want to know why? Because we got to deal with,
because we are administrators,
right? We are administrators in our own right, and they make some of the best. Or football coaches. You know how many former basketball and football coaches I know that are admins, and their schools are great because they understand how to get large groups of people.
Team. They know how to build a team.
So when you get folks that always feel like underserviced, like there's certain elements in our music department that, you know what I'm saying, they don't get. I'm going to be honest, at both my alma maters, until I got to Vandercook, the orchestra programs were not good. We used to sit in the audience. The guy, rest his soul, sit not too far from Mr. Timothy Chambers and just look at his expressions. He would try to like keep them to himself. This was the classic one. You know, I'm like, oh, there you go. You know, when our orchestra was on stage, we were just like, man, you know, and so I never experienced that until I got to graduate school. So there are some elements of the music department that are not going to be highlighted. We're assessed in the band often, whether it's convocation, homecoming, football games, community performance. Like, we're always out there. So there's always going to be a larger attention on us, and we're going to be assessed. But again, when you get other individuals that are in the position of power, they're like, oh, you know, I've always been underneath the band. It's about to be us right now. I've seen it where the band can't get instruments, you know, repaired, but then the choir is going to Africa. You know what I'm saying? Like, wait a minute, like, you know.
So that sounds familiar.
Right. And so again, is you know what I'm saying, very important that you know, that there's balance, like you guys said.
I think to your point, it sounded like he was a theater teacher or art teacher that was your department chair. Because
go ahead.
It sounded like they let you do your job. It wasn't, we were talking about how we have to put egos aside. There was no ego. Your department chair knew they had to run the department, but they don't know, they're not the expert in all of the fields. So what they did was they let the people who were the experts do their job. And see, that's a big thing. I think the issue with HBCUs is, especially in the past decade, there is a stigma about glazing and about certain traditions that, you know, that it put administration and department chairs on high alert to where, okay, we have to play the police, we have to play damage control, we have to play PR. So, and we have to play legal. So the best way to do it is to control them, to manipulate them into a certain product so we won't lose our jobs. It's a CMC.
But who did it? Who did it? We did it. We did it to ourselves. We did it to ourselves. And there's folks that still don't get it and wonder why program A is here and program B is still stuck in the 70s and 80s. And they wonder why we don't see progression.
That's
we should all want better. I don't care who's there. One of my alma maters just opened up and they were looking for a search. And I said, I saw candidates. I was like, they have got some great candidates there. I wish them well. It's all about getting the right person in place. But too many of us are like, if it ain't me, or if it ain't my boy, or if it ain't such a, or this is how we used to do it, or whatever. It's like, come on, man. We hold ourselves back. I was watching this podcast, and it was the Pivot podcast, and they're all former NFL players. And one of the guys was talking about, he's like, I take my boys on trips, but instead of like just going to kick it, we go eat at some different restaurants, or we go to a different place, because I want them to see what life is other places versus just being used to doing the same things, you know? And it's crazy. Like, we know I would say there's a good amount of us that we could hang anywhere we go, whether if we're playing in an ensemble at Juilliard or here or whatever, or teaching this or do this or whatever. I would say in our HBCU community, there's some
that comes from world experiences,
right? But then there's some folks, and I have to say this, in this newer generation, they won't last out of their county, district, or state that they're in. They'll go to another state and won't even be looked at. Won't even, you know, you go to some of these conferences and you'll see folks like, I'm not going to this session. I'm not going to this. That's the one you need to go to. Or now, I'm not going to talk to whatever. Let me tell you.
That's because they haven't been battle tested either. Right. If you can only be successful in your state, but if you go somewhere else, can you adapt? Is your pedagogy strong enough to build on any level?
Or is your ego, can you shrink yourself to listen and to learn from somebody else? You know, and that's my biggest thing. I'm gonna be honest, I've reached out to some young directors. I'll see some things on Facebook and social media, and I'll hit them in the inbox and say, hey, let's chat, let's talk, you know, just to have a conversation. And some have met with some, you know, good conversation. And I always go into it, hey, I can learn from them and they can learn from me. But then I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of these young guys, you know, in the profession, I would say, you know, and I'm going to be honest, I'm going to say it's our male counterparts. I think our women are more apt to listen and take perspective from other folks than us males. We
but
don't,
you know why?
We don't know why. Go ahead.
No. You know why? Because we're taught that we don't have a place to speak. And so when you can't speak, your only option is what? Listening.
Yeah, listen and take it in. And so, but I've met with other, you know, like, I won't say opposition, but just like, all right, or very dismissive, you know, and I say, okay, you know, I'll take a step back. It's just like when I go play basketball, I like playing with my age group and maybe a little bit younger. I don't like to play with these young boys because they don't listen, you know, and don't listen. Like, hey, go over here. Like, let's play the game. Let's not, you know, again, we're so used to microwave stuff, you know, what can we do to make it quick and make it happen versus like, you know, going through the process. And again, going back to just this topic, if we speed things up, then we wonder why things are left to where they are. We would love to see more directors that are, you know what I'm saying, in positions for years, you know, and building that. Again, when you build that, then there comes those healthy traditions, you know, those healthy traditions that you see, you know. I'm a band fan, and there's some programs that I just love. Like, I had about 7 students go to the FAMU camp, and they were talking about doing Slow One, which is their death march, which they've been doing since the late 40s, maybe early 50s. And I remember learning that when I was in high school, and just here, I was like, let me tell you that, let me hear your stories. And like, man, we had to do this, we had to do this. And I was just like, man, I remember when I did that. And I thought that was so good just to hear those stories and then passing them on. You know, just like kids maybe going to the Jackson State camp and learning the Tiger Run on, like that stuff you've seen. And I think those things are great. But, you know, when we get, you know, individuals in place, or we have that revolving door, then a lot of that goodness goes away. And if we always are hiring within the same cloth, then sometimes we see some of that negative stuff kind of stick around, you know, and we just don't, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, we just don't do well when it comes to the vetting process, in my opinion.
Just not but there's some people who are getting it right. There's some hires.
I thought
there's some hires that I was like, ooh, this about to be Interesting to see how this goes.
And
Hoping
there's
that support is there.
There are a couple schools. I do know of a few hires that have paid for moving expenses, that have found a place for families to go till they find their own place. Their salary is competitive. I was like, oh, word, that's what they doing. You know, I'm aware of that, and that gives me hope. That gives me hope that these things will happen for, you know, the right person for their right job. I mean, again, we don't want to see programs not be in existence, or we don't want to see programs go from this huge group to small. You know what I'm saying? We want to see everybody. I want to see everybody win and do well. But you know, I think that there is hope, and I think some of our HBCUs are like, hey, look, we got to come with it if we want somebody good, because it's starting to, like you said, that revolving door is starting to fall off the hinges. For some every year,
that door broken. That door has been broken down, dragged down the street.
Yeah, I remember going to a conference and I was talking with this guy. He was over the conducting portion of it, and he was just like, "Man," I was like, "Yeah, you heard that such and such school, the campus we were on, was open." He was like, "Man, they're always looking for a new director." He was like, "I'm telling you, as a future professor, stay away from schools like that." Yeah. He's like, "Because there's something internal going wrong."
That's actually with any job. Like, if there is. You have to research that job to see if they have a high, what is it, turnaround? What do they call it? If they have a high turnaround, because if they
attrition.
Yeah, because if they do, it's like, what's going on with y'all? That
it's a red flag. It's a huge red flag. It's a huge red flag. And sometimes, and I've seen people take jobs for extremely less and have to do a whole bunch of work just because in the name of the HBCU. This is, you know what I'm saying? Like, I love this school, I love this culture, or be their program. I'm going to go regardless. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to go regardless because I just, you know, I want to be there with it. And I get it. You know what I'm saying? I took a pay cut to come to my job here from where I was in Vegas, to be honest. Wasn't too much, but it was a little pay cut. But I knew it was going to be a better environment. You know, I was going to be a better environment, healthy for myself and my family. And that's another thing that we think about with these jobs as well, too, like the family aspect. Like of it as well too. You're not making it comfortable for the person being in their job, but they still got to be a husband, a wife, a mom, a dad, or whatever. But certain jobs make sure that it's taken care of.
But that's an American society issue at large. It's not caring about balance at all. And you know, the elephant in the room, back to hiring our own. And when we talk about women, because I'm gonna say it, that knocks women out 50% more than men. I don't care. No. This is not shade to dads who take their daughters, their sons, their kids to band practice and keep their kid with them. But I'm telling you right now, I know more single directors, especially who were before me, than I know of single male directors. And the reason why, we have always said this in our community, that if you want that position, you can't have kids. And you might not even be able to get married, because if you do, they're not going to understand the demand. And it's tough. I'm even saying that as somebody been married 15 years, it can be tough because society does expect women to take care of home first. And your job, if you do both, then you chose to do both, and the chaos that comes with it, suck it up, buttercup, and deal with it. I rolled my son on the graduation field, and someone came to berate me. I was like, why didn't you ask? Somebody said there was no one to ask. My husband's at work.
Right.
Daycare is down the street. Daycare has a limit. Child got to be with me. So
and I'm not leaving my kid just with anybody.
That part. So he's better off. He cool. He a band kid. He know how to be quiet and drink the sippy cup. But credentials. A lot of the candidates that we're seeing now have credentials. Oh my God, when we went to Midwest, I was so impressed with how many brothers were working on their doctorate. But I went home and I thought about it. I said, but I don't see that many women, Black women. And I had to think about all the reasons why, all the things you have to sacrifice to have that time. And so when we think about credentials, people say, well, we don't want to hire someone without credentials. And so if the woman doesn't have credentials, I'm like, but we don't really have a setup that makes that equitable. We just don't. It used to be not equitable for any of us. And you know, I always say that Black women are the minority in this conversation. We are 0.001% of the band directors right now. And I'm not just talking HBCUs. Like, we aren't even 1%. And I'm not, of course, I don't think that, you know, it would make sense to see like, oh, let's see 100, because that would be disingenuous to a vetting process. But at the same time, credentials are devil's advocate. Sometimes credentials work in your advantage and sometimes they don't. My first college gig I got last year at a white school. I work at a PWI. They didn't vet me nearly as hard as some HBCUs. And I'll go ahead and, you know, I'll be transparent. In some cases, when I look at the age, the experience level, and the credentials of candidates at some of my HBCUs, and I look at my age and credentials and experience, I say, y'all just hired them because you wanted to. Just be honest.
Yeah.
Let's stop lying. Let's stop throwing all these big credentials, experience, throw all that out the window. Let's be honest in this world. You hire who you want, who you like, because you want to. And some people hire who they want because they have the credentials, because they meet the requirements. And those two things are not equitable across our HBCUs in particular. So the women, the Black women, are going to PWIs. I did not bat an eye at the opportunity. I didn't even consider, well, let me go try to go back home. I'm going to tell you why. Because home doesn't always welcome us back, even when we have done the work. Home doesn't welcome everybody back. Credentials are not.
I think when we talk about credentials, we have to talk about what credentials mean to different schools. For some schools, credentials mean, you know, you had your master's from this music program at this university, and then you did your dissertation on a certain subject and got your doctorate or PhD or whatever. Credentials at other schools could be me. Oh, I took them to Honda Battle of the Bands. Oh, I marched for this program, and we are a famous marching band. So we have to, in answering this question, we have to define what they are to some people. Like, are credentials important? What credentials are they requiring for that university? And how do we feel about those credentials? I think, yeah, credentials do matter, because on paper, that's where they meet you first. That's where they meet you before the interview process. So you have to brag about yourself on paper. You have to put everything in the kitchen sink into that document, that Google document, your resume,
that
your
CV.
Curriculum. Yeah, I was just about to say that, CV. Thank you. I was about to say the whole government name, curriculum. All that. You have to sell yourself. So yes, credentials do matter. When you're on paper, when HR is going through your resume. Now, if they have a certain criteria, you know, do those credentials fit that criteria? And for those that are watching, depending on the job description, the best way to fit that criteria is to put what's on the description on your resume if you have that experience. Somebody mentioned earlier that the job descriptions are sometimes they're kind of shoddy. They're not descriptive at all. You have one-line descriptions. So what do you do with that? You've put everything on your resume. Just put everything on your resume and see if you'll get hired for it.
Lauren,
I believe they do matter.
I saw a description that it was the title for a band director, but then in the credentials, it had like a science degree or something. Like, I was like, did somebody read this? Like, this makes no sense. Or you'll see some like, you know, okay, director of bands position, but we want, I don't know. again, it's all over the place. Like there isn't a set standard. Like you'll see some that just want a wind conducting degree, or that want this, or music ed, or whatever. It's like it's all over the place. And so you mentioned that just popped
or
in my
other
head.
duties as needed.
Right. It's like, wait a minute, like I need you to be a little bit more specific. I'm not gonna go sit in and help with science labs or whatever. That's honestly what that is. Other duties as assigned. If they want you to teach underwater basket weaving, that's what you're going to teach to hell that job. That thing is.
So I'm glad y'all brought that up, because a lot of the people that do reach out to me, especially young educators, and I'm glad they do. It's flattering because I feel like they think I know what the hell I'm doing. And sometimes I'm just, I'm flying the plane and building at the same time. But when we talk about certification, that's why I always yell at, listen, I know Arizona and some other states to start this mess. Don't fall for this shit. Don't fall for this shit. Do not fall for it, because it's going to be a way for them to pay you less. You are dumb.
Sure.
You're done. I don't care how many times you got to take to praxis. I don't care. You better call Dr. Brock. You better ask Christy to fix your resume. You better call and shouting out these sisters, because they understand the importance of the aesthetics that you need to be marketable and to get the job and keep the job. And so these certification,
keep the job.
That means if somebody like me, and I always tell people, and this is not me bragging on myself, this is real talk. Like if they hire you on a conditional and you don't meet the requirements by that deadline, I, in a lot of states, can come in and challenge your position and get it. And get it. And it will be unfair. It will be dog eat dog, and it'll be rude and mean and nasty. And I might not do as good a job as you. I'm going to be transparent. But on paper, they look at liability. They look at the fact you don't belong to the union in most cases.
SACS accreditation.
Yeah. So don't fall for that. I don't want to abide by the white man certification process. Guess what? I'm going to tell you the only way out of it then. Climb that ladder, sit at the top, and then rip it apart from the top of the building. Yeah, you cannot do that. You cannot get that change, or you're just gonna never have any security. You're always gonna be lowballed. And now that universities have caught on to the game, they're not even offering tenure to some of these new hires, because they're like, this person is desperate. This person wants to be here. They want a college name. They want the notoriety of it, and they'll get it, but they'll have them doing so many other duties as assigned, no support, no tenure, that you're trapped, or you just quit and you have to start to do the chicken dance, and you're constantly being
see, but that it comes with respecting yourself and respecting your credentials. You can't just take any job, because it leads to dead ends. Also, if future jobs looked at where you work at, they might not hire you. You have to really respect yourself. You have to really analyze what it is that what they're asking you to do. Because if you're looking to do one thing and they have you do something else, then it's not going to be rewarding for you. So, you have to make your college experience and your work experience worth the jobs that you're applying to.
So we got this question, and I think I'm going to try to tackle it, and I don't know if y'all want to kind of chime in too. Credentials, are we talking about credentials as far as certification, or they have a track record of having successful programs? Here's how I look at credentials, and somebody may not share this look. Credentials are hard, tangible items. Like my degree is a credential. It says music. You know that I went through 4 years of a degree program in a specific domain. That to me is a credential. A marriage license is a credential. Can you be married without a license in your mind? But on paper, you're not. So
we go together.
Right. We go together. Like we could be life mates.
Or common law marriage in certain states.
But tax wise, try that with the IRS. They're going to say, you single. file a single. But I'm saying that to say credentials are hard, tangible. Experience is subjective. And so when we talk about what's the difference, because a lot of people say, well, having a successful track record is a credential. No, it's not. It's just experience it's experience, but it's not necessarily a credential. Should it mirror your credentials? Yes, but we all know people who we've had teachers, instructors that have degrees that can't teach their way out of a paper brown bag. So this is not me saying that the credential rides, but you have the credential and then you put experience behind it. And then that should give someone a holistic view of what you can do. Because when I said experience is subjective, that might only be in one place, one level.
Right.
You are a great elementary band director, but high school is well out of your league because there's so many other experiences that you may lack. But that credential, if you have a degree in music, you had to pass theory.
Right.
If you have a degree in music, there's certain things that you had to have. Someone just put in the chat, proven credentials. So,
right. and if you don't have it, like, just again, me being transparent, if you don't have something like I came in lateral entry, and a lot of states have gotten rid of that, and if you don't have a credential, you don't have a certification, you're working towards it, your product's got to be top notch. I was fortunate that my superintendent was like, hey, that band looks and sounds good my first year, better than what it was the year before. Keep chipping away at it. He knew I was working towards, I had to take a classroom management class. It was, it was just a few ones that I had to take, and I did. And once I took it, then I was good to go in the practice exam. And so, but your product has to be good. If if they're, and even for individuals that go into a collegiate position with just a master's degree, there's that pressure. You got to have this doctor. Are you working towards your doctorate? Sometimes that's in your contract. You got to have that. And if you don't finish by a certain time, then, your job's going to be up. So if you do, have some things that you have to work on, your product has got to be top notch, and you just got to be showing evidence that you're working towards those proven credentials. Somebody said success is very subjective. Yes. What one program may say is success for them, it's another. We have our trophy seekers, that's their barometer of success, or even plaques, festival plaques and things like that. I got a great program because we got this plaque, or, ratings and stuff like that. But I don't know. Success is very, very subjective. And a lot of times in our area, we base success sometimes on the wrong stuff. Like I remember the early stages of Honda, and it was like a badge of honor to get selected to go. And then, as years progress, they were just selecting who they wanted to select and trying to give everybody a shot, which I get it. But it's like, if this is the Super Bowl of band, I had a band director tell me this is the Super Bowl of band, why isn't our best out there? And that would just make everybody else. But it's kind of like the participation trophy. All right, let's.
And based off of what litmus test is the best. And we can say that with candidates.
Right.
You know what I kind of wish with credentials? We have Common App for colleges now. Those of us who teach high school, Common App is back in our day. And I'm going to say our day, like my day, at least Chuck's day. I don't know, Lauren, it might be in your day. You had to apply to every single school you wanted to go to and pay their fee or get a waiver. But even waivers weren't common at that point. But you had to, but now they have Common App. Basically, if the school is on Common App, you just checking boxes of the schools you want to go to, and you can send your statement in one swoop, your transcripts in one swoop. I wish we had a Common App for what a university band director is. Like, so when people apply to these things, like on the Common App, a music degree. But I know that's like wishful thinking. I know that is like, some people say that's elitism. Is it? Would you go to the doctor and not look for the fact, when I go to doctors, especially when I pick a new doctor, I look for the wall where their degree is framed or whatever institute they went to. That's comforting to me, because I'm like, you about to work on me. You about to give me a diagnosis. You're about to treat me. I need to know where you came from. And the idea that anybody can just do band is insane to me. And we did that to ourselves back. That's the, Chuck keeps saying it all day. We did that to ourselves because we lessened us.
Yeah, like, okay, I don't want to doctor them with the Walden University online. They need that experience. The credentials show that you actually studied it. Experience is one thing, but credentials shows study.
That you earned it. That you earned it. Degreed.
It's going through a process.
That you earned it. That's what that is. That you earned it.
But we wouldn't allow someone to pledge like that. We talk about those people. What the hell? What the hell, y'all? What the hell? I feel like that means, what the hell? What the hell? We talk about people. You had to leave for a second?
I had to leave on that one. Let me tell you.
What multiverse are we in at this point? You would not let somebody wear your letters.
Father God.
But we doing that now. That's why I had to get up. We doing that now. We doing that now.
So when people push back, I get it. A lot of these credentials are based off of Eurocentric ideas. One thing that we're doing at UMBC, first of all, our entire new hires, it looks like a rainbow of age, and I love it. I'm here for it. We got Dr. Liz Palmer is a professor at UMBC now. We all got hired at the same time because the Jewish department chair said, if we are going to serve the students coming in the door and the diversity that's coming in the door, we need all hands on deck with diversity. Yeah. And so we're writing curriculum right now. I'm a little late. I'm trying to write curriculum, culturally relevant practicum on the university level. This is a white school. So when Lauren says they are getting it, but let me tell you, every one of us have at least not one degree, not 2, 3.
Yeah.
Every one of us. And we look the same.
Learning, Dr. Review says all the time, learning or education never stops. And when he used to say that, I'd be like, man, yeah, after I graduate, it's over with. Like, that was my mindset back then. But that's what it is. Like, it's always, especially education, it's always like evolving, it's changing. And like you mentioned, these PWIs are setting their ego aside and saying, hey, we don't know all the answers to this. We need to get somebody that looks the way that we want, in terms of the diverse department we want or school we want. And we need to listen, to them. And too many times we're just trying to get over on each other at HBCUs. It's just really competitive. And we don't think about helping the next person get better. Like, I get so excited when I see former students not only do well, but those that have gotten to education. Like, I remember attending one of my former students' singing recital, and I was an emotional wreck. Like, God, I remember putting the horn in this kid's hand. You know what I'm saying? Like, and somebody asked, what is success? I can only say it for me. That is success to me. When I see my kids doing those things or getting better than me. I have one kid that on that saxophone, he plays circles around me. I'm like, man, you've been doing some practicing. Like, you've really been, and that's always a good feeling. We've had that student in our class that they're like, oh, like you gotta make sure you're right. I got one that his dad's a professor at Morehouse. He's a chemistry professor, but he's always asking me about theory. He's always, like, hey, what do you think about this? So I'm like, man, I gotta go back.
Learning never
Look at
stops.
these Neapolitan chords and stuff. I gotta go back and to refresh my memory. Like, and I love it. It makes me better. So I only can say that success, that's for me. But again, when we talk about these credentials, it's an embodiment. It's an embodiment of several different things. And I also believe too, as well, being stamped and approved by folks that have done it, on a high level. And if those individuals say, hey, keep doing what you're doing, that means a lot to me, especially for individuals that, again, have been doing it for a very, very long time. When Mr. Charlie Brown said something to me after our performance at the consortium, that meant a lot to me because I know how long he's been teaching, and I know what my band directors thought of his work and his programs and stuff like that. That goes a long way. But again, that goes with really wanting to learn from others, and be a sponge. Again, some folks just they don't want to learn from others. They're okay in their area and what they do, and they think it's the next best thing since sliced bread, and won't take an opportunity to pick up, some skills from other folks. And again, it's just we do it to ourselves, we do it to ourselves, and we don't allow ourselves to really truly make ourselves better. Because if we do, then we've seen it. We've seen it with programs or even schools that invest, like Wade Johnson, that's at Benedict. Like, he is a very strong educator, period. And everybody knows his schools when he was in South Carolina. So it's just fitting for him to be there at Benedict. And man, he got them kids rocking, man. And that's what it should be. Like, you're showing yourself approved. You can't get through a music pro. I know some people that are band directors that didn't do a senior recital.
I can't leave my own podcast. When you say stuff like that, you just make me want to go take up, like,
how do you have this degree
underwater basket weaving when you tell me stuff like that?
Recital?
I gave up. Real talk. My studio professor told me, was real honest, said, you're not ready for this recital. This was March.
I got that.
Yeah, you're not ready. I was playing some clarinet war horses. I did it to myself because I chose the music. But that junior year and band life, back to that, kind of became so important that I wasn't really working as hard on my horn as I had my freshman year. And I had to make a decision. Go to MEAC basketball championship tournament, which is like the highlight, when you part of what we call A band, whatever A band is,
right?
You want to go. And your senior year,
especially you were a woman as well too. Women didn't get those opportunities as much.
After that first year, I was on that list every year, and I said, and it was only two of us, but I was there.
Brass, we get, I went every year.
Yeah, y'all gonna get four.
NCAA and MEAC.
I'm sorry, I was the woman that got that opportunity, but whatever.
But me and Laura have talked about this. I felt bad because there were some people under me
that never got a shot.
They would never go.
It's like Jordan, I'm sorry, being on the All-Star
not until I leave. And someone had to tell one of them, was like, that's great, but you're gonna have to wait until she leaves.
Always in the virtuoso band.
And you know what? That is, and there's nothing wrong with that. I used to sit next to Chris Hayes, trombone player, and Kelvin Jordan, another trombone player. We were both, all three of us in the same studio. And we had a lot of trombones in our wind ensemble one year. So we were all playing first. We had 3 firsts. We had about 4 or 5 second. We had some bass trombone. We had a lot of trombones, right? And Dr. Ruff would go through that I recommend book every section a week. And it was like, you ever used to see games with the cups and you got to guess the thing that's in it. We were always like, if one of us wasn't on our P's and Q's, he'd be like, all right, Charles, you shift down here. Chris, you go up here. Oh, Kelvin, you go up here. Oh, Chuck, you go up here. Like, we were always like at each other's necks for like, you know what I'm saying, that principal spot. But it was really good because it pushed us. It pushed us to be better. It pushed us, and it was healthy. You know what I'm saying? It was healthy competition. Sometimes we get done playing, and be like, oh, I got you today. Yep, I got you next week.
Pressing,
right?
You've been pressed and battle tested. Keita just said something, and I definitely don't want to ignore this because this was his first year teaching.
Oh, and shout out to Keita too. He's one of those young directors that take advice from folks and ask questions.
That's why I put it up there because. You know, he said it's eye-opening to be.
That's that shout out from that seasoned director that you needed.
Because if you call Chuck old, you calling me old too, man. Don't do that.
Hey, look,
I had to change my vocabulary on that one.
We refined, but just that battle tested, and then experience is the best teacher. Once you get the credentials, now you got to have experiences so you can build enough tools and have a tool when a kid comes to you. You know, there are a lot of band directors, college and public school, that can't help kids with fingerings. Like, you don't know, like how you don't know how to get them to do what you're asking them to do. Yeah. And you got hired to do this job. It's insane to me.
This is what our HBCUs, some of them do a disservice. I know my methods class, when I was finishing, I only had 2 weeks on flute, 2 weeks on clarinet. Like, I only had a short amount of time to get through all these woodwind instruments, which are secondary instruments for me, because I decided, hey, I'm going to go rent one, or I'm going to go find one at a pawn shop so I could play through it or whatever. But if you go to other schools, I found out the undergraduate majors at Vandercook not only have their principal, but they have their secondary, which we all know is piano that everybody has to do. But then they have another one, like outside of their brass, it's got to be woodwinds, and they're taking just as many applied lessons as they are on their principal, but starting at the beginning level with their secondary instrument. And that's why those guys come out so thorough.
So let me tell you something that we changed. If anybody know, I taught woodwind at UMBC. That was my first year. This past year, I just finished. I had 14 students. Woo, yeah. That's a whole different level of personality is teaching adults.
Oh,
because kids will listen. Adults can be worse than kids. But now I'm teaching brass methods and overseeing the music education majors, internships. That's big because that's the people about to come out and come in your classroom.
That's something that I was like, if I'm never a director of bands or an assistant on the collegiate level, I want to have my paws on this group. On the music ed majors and method classes, because I know how vital those are.
It's so important. But credential wise, I look at it not even as a director. What if they hired me and I did not know fingerings? I didn't know rubber band method on fingerings to keep your hands intact.
Or where to get that information. None of this stuff is secret.
Or I haven't been anywhere or talked to anybody because I won't hear nothing from anybody other than my circle, good old boy circle, bringing this all full circle. And now I'm in front of the next generation.
Right. Or you've never taken a group to festival, don't know what it's going to be in that sight reading room, or how biased some of these opinions can be on stage. And you feel like you're about to rip your hair off because you've been working with these kids for the last 4 to 5 months, but they don't understand what you've been through just to get a group on the stage.
So harder in practice, though. Yeah. We have a lot of people, and I really, in my heart of heart, want them to be successful. I really do. I don't want you to fail because that just hurts the whole community. It hurts the whole culture. It makes all of us look bad. It makes us look unqualified and unrefined and unknowledgeable. Not saying that we are, because we know we are the best and the brightest sometimes. And our race and our gender don't even matter in that sense. But when we wink at this foolishness, it's foolishness. We hurt the whole.
And when people,
praise it.
We put it on a pedestal. We
Yeah.
put it on the pedestal.
Oh no, we get called, and then we get called haters. And I know I can go in your classroom and in 5 minutes tell whether you got classroom management or not. Before the kids even play a note, I'm like, that's about to be interesting.
Right. And then we all had to learn that, I'm sure, early on.
Because we got our asses handed to us.
Come on now, you know, or doing things, we could talk about this, like trauma, doing things that we did when we were in college and then infusing them into our programs. And then as you get older, you realize, like, wait a minute, I shouldn't have did that. I tell people that one of the reasons why I'm able to be successful is because I've been able to make all the mistakes, you know, in the profession, made professional mistakes, made musical mistakes, and you made all and be able to, okay, let me be reflective. Let me find out. And I remember my high school band director said, he said, all right, find you another band director to be underneath, to shadow, you know. I was fortunate that after I got done with my observant hours, I went right over to Pratt, you know. I'm like, look, I need to know what you're doing to get these kids from point A to point Z. I need to know. Even as a alum of the rival program, I need to know. Or even when I was in college, I used to sit in rehearsal with Jerome Reed at Central, or go and watch and observe. When we had a bye weekend, he'd see me and say, hey, come on. And I'd sit in front of the band. Funny story, I had somebody from Central trying to recruit me while I was still a student at A&T, like, oh, you should come to Central. You know, it's a really good program. I was like, yeah, I've heard some good things about it, you know, not knowing, you know, that I was a student at A&T and I played the band there. But I wanted to learn. I wanted to see those individuals work and how they can get things better. And you know, the whole Hbcus and Sukasa, we have to do that with our band room. You know, we have to do it with our band room, and just allow people to come in and to learn and observe. And I know for me, I've had some opportunities to just get on the podium, but hey, get on the podium, you know, make all the mistakes, you know, and I'm going to help you, you know. Even with my student conductors, they'll get on the podium and I'll sit right there and say, okay, good job here. Okay, let's do this. Let's do, you know, like have that open space to do that. But again, we get so competitive. And the crazy thing is, even those two directors that I spoke to at that meeting that I was at, and they were both talking about the internet and all this stuff, how it was making their you know, experience sour. They were talking about how much the old directors used to like rock with each other. Like with talk, of course they talk, they junk, you know what I'm saying? But they really, like, they would stay at each other's house in the summer, go here. I used to hear stuff, Dr. Isaac Greggs coming to Atlanta and getting up with all the directors here in the area, and them talking and sharing things, and Mr. Ellis and all it. And I'm just like, man, I love it.
That comes with knowing that you want longevity. Mm-hmm. And knowing that means you have to be a good colleague. And a lot of the hiring practices that we're seeing are not setting university HBCU band programs or even public schools for longevity. My biggest rival, I call him every day. We had the oldest rival in American history football. Mm-hmm. That Poly and City College, it's the oldest because City College is like almost the oldest school in the nation. It's all black. Like, you'd have to know, like, Baltimore was the capital. So of course, like, the schools here are old as hell. I call that man every day. I call him every day on the way to work, just make sure that he's good. He called me, he's like, sis, you'll never know what they asked me today. And we troubleshoot on the way to work before we even set foot in our classrooms, because at the end of the day, all that will go away. All we'll have is the connections and the memories that we create. And we can have good ones or bad ones. And I start to think about all of this kind of sensationalism, like this is a WWE match for band. Like, yeah, you say your words, you know, you square up. But at the end of the day, you're still colleagues. Yeah. And you should be hiring good colleagues. And we're not hiring good colleagues.
I think the lack of longevity is actually creating more competition. So, you know, a lot of things, especially with this hiring process, that's a good example of it. Things are so cryptic now because the competition is out there, but the jobs are not out there. The longevity is not there anymore. We just hired, like, think about it. Melvin Miles, he had his job since he was like 22 years old. Now we've hired somebody who's in his mid 40s. I hope he stays at Morgan for the rest of his career, but he started as a collegiate band director in his 20s, but he didn't start at a certain place in his 20s to be there for the rest of his career. And that's like that everywhere. So it creates a tension between your colleagues, even though your colleagues also creates unhealthy competition. You know, everybody's gunning for the same thing. So my question is, how do we solve that issue of creating good colleagues? And another thing I wanted to mention was, you know, people like Dr. Isaac Greggs, they did that because they were Black band directors and they had to stick together.
Yeah, because and again, Drew mentioned it's like basically all the heavy hitters. Yeah, there was at one point Vandercook and Michigan, University of Michigan, were like one of the few schools that were allowing minorities to get a master's degree, you know, or extensive degree in music. The other schools just wasn't allowing them there. Indiana was another one as well too. It was the Midwest, the Big Ten, and I didn't know, and I had a conversation with Dr. O'Neill Sanford. He was at U of M with Ravelli and then left and went to Vandercook. You know, I was like, wow, I had no idea. I knew he was a Vandercook alum. He's like, no, I started at U of M. I left there and then went to Vandercook because of what they were going on there. And so, but you're right, though. And what I think it is that we don't invest enough. When I was in Chicago, we used to do these teacher retreats. Now, they used to get turned up, a little ratchet, and they were away. We used to go away for a whole weekend. But we used to like dig into the curriculum. We used to dig into everything. Department meetings were intense. But then after that, we kicked it. So when we came back to our school on the south side of Chicago, I mean, you know what I'm saying? If we had to take a bullet for one of us, we would have did it. We were that tight. We were that tight. We were that close. Sometimes that made things in the work environment, you know, a little extra. I'll just say that because, you know, everybody knew each other, you know, some a little bit more than others, you know. And,
just like band life.
Right. Just like band life. But, you know, like, you know, when we were in college and I've seen we've all had issues where maybe the football team tried to get in between the band or a random person or whatever at a parade or whatever, that we gon', you know what I'm saying, we gonna link up and protect our own, you know what I'm saying? And even if it came down to it, if it was another band program, seeing that a group of individuals were messing with another band program, we gonna hold them down. You know what I'm saying? We gonna hold them down. And so, you know, I think that the universities don't invest enough time and energy into professional development for their departments. They don't do that. It's just like, hey, figure it out. But you got folks working together that don't know each other. Again, for me, having an athletic background, I always tell my students the tightest team that I was a part of was when I played varsity football as a freshman, and we did everything together. We did everything together, and the upperclassmen held us accountable. We respected the lineage and the tradition of the program, and nobody did anything to compromise that. And then that's why, and I ended up moving, but that team ended up winning a state title. I was like, no wonder. You know, I was like, no wonder, because it was just so tight and everybody knew each other's chemistry. And we don't have chemistry or respect for what each other does. You know, I've seen it where band directors have worked closely with choir directors and even orchestra directors and built this really good pride. Hey, let's do this together. Mr. Chambers always used to do things with the choir and sing, you know, because that was his background, you know, and he would always tell me as a young future band director, he was like, our instruments are emulating voices, so you need to get better at this side of it. It's important.
See, that's a thing that should be asked in hiring practices.
Yeah.
Like that's one of those questions about how do you work with others? Because a lot of the issues we see sometimes with the revolving doors because they couldn't work with who they were with, whether it was valid or not. My heartbreak in me leaving Western was leaving my team. Oh my gosh, I'm not even over it, because they were so not just professionals at what they do, and I trusted that on end. I would put them against anybody, but at the same time, we could kick it with each other.
Mm-hmm.
We can disagree. We can bounce ideas off each other. Like, we would have what we call hallway meetings, and we were like, all right, circle meeting, just to what we eating today. It would just be and we know in team building and building bands that's relationships are the most essential thing to your whole program, and you have to know how to build them. A band director has to be able to be a people's person enough to be able to maneuver politics. Nobody wants to talk to the general asshole. I don't care how good the band sound. They're not going to invite you if you, when they tell you to cut off the band and the rest come over and the coach come over and you like, man, screw you. I'm going to do what I'm doing because it sounds good. Yeah, you ain't going to keep a job that long. They're going to find, that's when they start looking for reasons to fire you.
Right.
And I see, and it'd be a matter of time. Like, when I see certain people get fired, I was like, it was a matter of time. And people are like, yeah, so negative. I was like,
yeah.
Have you heard some of the stories? And be like, well, you can't believe everything. I was like, yeah, but if you keep hearing the same thing over and over again,
there's smoke, there's fire.
There's fire.
If there's smoke, there's fire.
Oh my gosh, this is such a good conversation. I feel like this could be like a 2-3 part series. It only came up because I saw a lot of buzz around the band director hires. And someone asked me, said, Krystal, why would you go for Morgan? I said the same thing you said. I said, I know the candidates, and I'm going to be real with myself. I don't have those credentials and that experience. That's something I'm striving for.
Yeah, respect yourself enough to know when to apply or when not to apply, when to hold them, when to fold them.
It's so crazy y'all are talking about this. I play in an adult basketball league Thursday nights, and we just had a game. We picked up 2 new players, right? And I played with the starting group, and I was just dog. You know, I've been in band camp. I was dog tight, and I felt it within the first. And I'm a former basketball coach as well too. Body language is key. You can tell when somebody's ready to go and when they're not. Just like you're playing an instrument, you can tell when they're focused and they're in the zone. And I felt it in the first few minutes. And I'm gonna be honest, we got down. It was like 15-3. We were down, and I felt it. I said, timeout. Pulled myself out the game and put that other guy in. And we ended up getting up like 20-15. And the captain of the team was like, man, he was like, that was big right there. I was like, what do you mean? He was like, you pulled yourself out. And I was like, bro, I could tell I wasn't all the way locked in, and I needed to step away. You know, and so again, we have to know that. You have to know when to hold them, when to fold them, when to step away, and when to let somebody else. One of my staff members at our band camp has been doing marching and maneuvering. Now, I know I can get out there and do it because I've done it for several years, but he's got a really good way with doing it. The students, they're responsive to me, but they're very responsive to him, and I recognize that. So we get down there in the morning. I got the headset, pass it on to him. Now I'm his assistant, reiterating the things he's saying and helping him out. You know, taking a step back. Like I've had to learn.
That's being a good leader, which we need band directors to be good leaders, and good leaders are good followers.
Yes, are very good followers, and reflective as well too. Reflective, be like, hey, am I hurting or am I helping? Am I hurting or am I helping? Is my ego getting? And you can tell, like a musician that has their ego behind it. I remember one of my, but he was a music minor, but he should have been a major. He ended up majoring in math. He got up on there, seminar, killed this solo. And he wasn't even a major. And he was the best trumpet in that studio. But
yeah, I know.
When he was playing, he in between rest, he kind of was like, feeling himself or whatever. And it took away from his overall performance. And I remember the conversation of some of the people in the department with him afterwards. Like, man, we totally stopped listening to your tone and what you were playing because we were so focused on you showboating. You know, and we even see that with conducting as well, too. When we're conducting, we're not conducting for the audience attention. It ain't for them. It's to bring out the best out of the group. I don't mind seeing big. I don't mind. There's a time and place for it. But I see folks now, and this can go to a whole nother thing, and I'm gonna shut up now. But I see folks
because there's not enough time to even
do just doing things that is bringing attention to them and not the group and not the music. Most importantly, and it just takes away, and I'm just like,
look at what I can do.
And half of the time, it's incorrect. It's not, you know what I'm saying, pedagogically sound.
Disingenuous.
You can't do it, and you can't do that anywhere outside of where you are, because you would be taken off the podium immediately. Like, what are you doing? But then people say this in the name of the culture. No, it's incorrect.
Here we go. Don't you say that. Don't you say it. Don't you say it for the culture. Don't you say it. Don't you say it, because when you do that, I get hate mail. People like, you arrogant. No, I know what I can't do.
We got hate mail in the comments. Shoot. All right.
I saw somebody say something a little bit earlier, which, you know, again, if you're gonna say what you say, stand on it, and let's have this.
They gonna mic up
this dialogue.
They gonna mic up. They're gonna say what they want to say and then dip out. Go get your own platform.
But I say this, and this is just me speaking, Chuck speaking, that if I say something and it rubs somebody the wrong way, or if it's, you know, I guess so-called knocking somebody else, I will be more than willing to help that individual and explain to them why this is why we do this is why we don't. This is how you can get better or whatever. Because that's what was done to me. Some of my closest friends, Gary Bryant, love him to death, is my brother. He'll tell me, Chuck, that didn't look good. Chuck, what the hell are you doing? You know better than this. And I can take that, because he'll be one to sit down with me and give me the why. And we'll have those conversations. We would go back and forth. Sometimes show-wise, he'd be like, nah, this is what you don't need to do. And then I do it, and then I flop, and I'm like, all right, I should have listened. Or music-wise, I'd be like, nah, I know this was going to be good. He'd be like, nah, I don't agree. And then it ends up doing well. He's like, huh, okay. You know, you went with your gut with that one. You know, and so again, like, I don't know. We hurt ourselves, and if we truly want our HBCUs and our departments and our schools to be better, we have to do a better job of vetting and working together. And like you said, less of us on the individual and more about the program as a whole. Because it hurts my heart when I know of folks that are extremely qualified, certified, and I know they could do a great job. And they don't get a shot. They don't get an opportunity. You know, and it's not anything in terms of their credentials or of what they've done. It's in a different area. And so I like what Edwin just said, real friends are mentors, and real with you, especially one. Yeah, you don't want a yes man around you. Any of my staff members know that they can challenge something, and I'll listen. I'm like, hey, what do you see? You know, as a basketball coach, I used to ask my players, what are you feeling on the court? What are you seeing? Because I know their perspective is different than mine. And then vice versa. I say, hey, this is what I'm seeing, and this is what we got to do. But too many times we just let it fly. We get caught up in the moment. And again, I love it all. There's a time and place for everything. But, you know, when it comes to these collegiate positions, this is the top. We don't have professional marching bands outside of our DCI. This is the top for us and for our profession. And we have to have individuals in there that, you know, they're going to be there for the long haul. Because you look at programs that are just stagnant or not growing, they just don't, they keep having new leadership. It's never going to get any better if they don't, you know, have somebody that's in there for the long haul. And as alum, we have to try to support everybody. As soon as I see somebody get a new position, I try to put it out there, because I'm like, hey, congratulations.
Whether I know them or not.
And I hope if that is God's calling for me, that I will get that same love too. But when I see some of the stuff that's put out there, like for these individuals getting these jobs, I mean, man, I'm not a violent person, but it makes me want, if I see that person, to check them. Like, that's not cool. Like, this person has worked extremely hard to get to where it is. And then somebody that couldn't even last in that position a day, or don't even have the talent of that individual in their pinky, is going to talk mess or say something that they wouldn't say to that person's face. It doesn't make sense. It pisses me off, lack of a better terms.
And it's not the same as critiquing. It's
No,
not.
it's different.
That's different.
Bad, it sounds
We talking
bad.
hate.
Right. If something sounds bad, it sounds bad. But
Mhm.
but this individual, oh, well, I hope he doesn't do this here, or I hope they don't do this, or whatever. Man, no. Support this individual. In the biggest support, if you can't say nothing nice, don't say nothing at all.
Ooh.
You know,
I think that is a good way to end. That
it's
is 8:59. I was about to put a cash app, ask you for the cash app. I was going to put the collection plate virtually.
Yeah, there we go.
Because my house, we run church from my house. So I know how to hit that whole. Yeah, I'm going to put that cash app link there. I'm going to put the QR code on the screen. But this was such a rich conversation. And there are haters that hate all of the process because, to be quite honest, they can't do it, or they're mad that they didn't get the opportunity. And I don't care how many opportunities I haven't gotten. That's just not right of me as someone in the craft that, quote unquote, love the culture, for the culture, to take a jab at somebody who did make it. I even had to check myself one day. I had a comment that was sideways. I said, wait a minute, that comment, that came out sideways. However they got it, and more power to them. And we're not talking about like not checking people who are just off, because there's some people that are just off and hurtful. We're not talking about winking at criminal activity just because, you got that fire. That my husband always said, they got that fire though. Yeah, but they rape kids. Like, what's wrong with us? But that's a whole nother rant. Hopefully, the band directors that have been hired are going to get much love, that they getting support from the universities that they're at, whether they're a graduate of it or not. Hopefully they'll get to onboard some staff that can help them with that journey if they don't already have one. And that the alumni support them at the universities, support them, and the same to public school, because it's just, and their money. I hope they're not
alumni equals money. Give back.
Don't just yell, give back something. If it's not your money, it's your time, it's donations, it's water, it's students. Like I used to tell Kathy Miles, I say, Kathy, I can't come to every game because they conflict with a lot of things we're doing over here. But you can always depend that I am pushing students this way. And if they choose to go, it's because I've told them that this is a good fit for them. That's what I can do. And that's what I hope that a lot of us are doing. And if you don't like things that are going on, there's decency and order, and even addressing that too. You don't need to be on Facebook. Like,
we don't need a petition for everything. No, just have y'all unified, pulled together, and gotten into that meeting with the department chair. And you pay money. You pay money. If you pay money, if you are donated, that's your right. You do have a right to say what you need to say. But
shoot, even if you didn't donate, you were a student. You donated that tuition money and those student loans. So even with that, they took that real quick. Yes, they did. So I should have a right to run my mouth about saying bad things about band directors. I'm guilty of it. I'm learning. I'm still growing, but I agree. It's kind of like. Yeah. I've done it too. Yeah, I'm guilty of it. It's like, that's why I didn't say anything this whole time. It's like, I've got a lot of ground to say. Yeah, y'all handle that. I've done it too, especially when I see folks that haven't put in the same amount of time. That's a trigger for me. I'm like, wait a minute, But I've realized that in anything in life, that the man upstairs is going to put you where he wants you versus where you want to be. And if the stars align, then they align.
you know, but I've get it. I've had those conversations as well too. Now, some of those things in those conversations like that I know that y'all have had and I have as well too may have a lot of legitimacy to them, some facts, you know, to them, and that's a real thing. But again, those individuals need our support. They need time to build and to grow. For some reason, we feel like this thing is magic. But a lot of time we have to make it magic and then it just happens. But that they don't realize the time and energy that it takes in focus and dedication and studying, you know, that we've had to do to show ourselves proof and to be able to execute these things at a drop of a dime. And so those again, I just hate it for people that get you can't even get your foot in the door and folks have XYZ to say. And it just I just couldn't imagine seeing that stuff. It's kind of hard.
And some people coming in at August 1.
Right. I don't care. I never care what other people think of me, but I don't want people to think negatively. That makes sense. I won't even think that I would do anything like cause anybody any ill will or whatever. So to see like some of those things, I'm just like, man, you know, and I try to speak highly of others in other rooms when I'm not in front of them, because I hope that I get that same energy back. But when you see that, you're like, man, and people don't understand that this whole music thing is a small circle. It's a small circle, and you could be burning the bridge before you even get to look at it.
But for real, Chuck, and ending on this,
yeah,
even when they don't talk positively about me, I try not to match that energy back, because I always think about the greater scope and how we look to just be honest. The people who don't want us to succeed, that don't look like us, that already have a narrative. Like if I engage that way with you, then it just makes the whole team look like this. Yeah. So I hope people got something out of this session. This was really good. It was definitely meaningful to me. I learned a lot. I didn't know about Vandercook. That explains a lot. That's part of that whole thing about agency and being able to communicate within the circle and learn from others. And the hiring practice stuff could be cleaned up. There's some people doing a really good job. There's some people who are missing the mark, and we see the evidence when, you know, directors revolving door and the doors on the hinges this year was all the way off the block.
I have never seen so many positions open.
It's like
right. The band world is weird.
Oh my goodness.
It's the band Hunger Games.
But see, it's like the changing of the guard. Like I said, we can't have the same directors cycling different schools. We have to have, and also we have directors passing away. We have directors retiring. You know, that's why there's so many positions open at the same time, and also directors moving from one school to another. So, you know, it's just, I don't want to call it weird. It's just, it's a new generation. That's life, you know.
It's a new season. It's a new season.
World.
Where you come from? We old. I'm sorry. We're refined. We're fine. With that being said, thank you again. Thank you for the comment section. Hit like before you leave. Hit like after you leave. Share the link. Post it. This is Passionist Network. I was asked, so I'm gonna throw that out there. I always like to throw an assumption. I was asked to have a podcast. I didn't make the podcast. The podcast Passionist Network has already existed. I'm thankful for the opportunity. I'm always willing to put the link in the chat. You mic up. If you disagree, mic up. Say what you're gonna say, or you prove to me that, like, you know, some of y'all have issues with women being in charge, and some of y'all kind of got some tendencies that aren't as even with your gender identity as you think. It's like, don't be coming out here with mess because you like, oh, these women, we can say what we want to say. No, like, stand your ground and stand on your own 2 feet. And if you believe something strongly, say it out loud. Say it out loud. Don't be in the chat room. Don't be on, you know, I mean, people are doing it anyway. But if you're gonna be part of the dialogue, be part of the dialogue. Keyword dialogue.
It come with some solutions.
Yeah, come with some something to the table. Don't just be kid to flip the table over and run out the room. So that's not productive, and that doesn't help the culture. So thank you for again, hit the likes. Thank you for being here. We've been here almost 3 hours. I knew when Chuck came in, we're gonna be in for 3 hours. But I'm long-winded too, because that's what band directors are, long-winded. Right. And I just want to say thank you, good night, much love from Diary of a Lady Band Director. Thank you again, Chuck, for coming in. And Lauren is in your lovely living room, which is technically behind the screen behind me, because we're in the same place right now. Oh, the power of technology. I love it. But thank you for being here. And, we'll see you again next week. New topic. We're always here. And if we're not here, it's because, we got families too. So thank you. Much love. Enjoy your evening.